team is who's out there on the hunt for Bill Belichick. But it was emotional. You can understand it. It felt like a retirement, even though we know Belichick is moving on.
There's a lot of reporting he still wants to coach. For him is the key word of that because that wasn't exactly the most emotional. The bar is really low for Bill Belichick to be emotional because I thought it was rather businesslike. As somebody pointed out on Twitter, he answered a question. He spent 14 minutes explaining why the long snapper is important at a press conference. He spent 3 minutes summing up the entire Patriots era. I actually did not think it was a overly emotional Bill Belichick. But it was nice to see that. I was glad.
We'll get into the future in just one moment, but if you did not hear the press conference, Belichick actually opened with a joke.
All right, morning. Seen this many cameras since we signed Tebow.
Look it. Maybe people are right. Maybe there is more to Belichick than meets the eye. And Tebow actually responded to that on Twitter and said, and that's the only thing they ever saw, right? Or that was the only impression I ever made. LOL. Congratulations, coach.
I seem to remember there were a lot of cameras after Spygate, Deflategate, Aaron Hernandez, but it is funny. Tebow was the ultimate. I remember that scene. Anyway, I think that was funny because of the moment. If you say that in a vacuum, just hearing it there is not funny. But when he said it, we were all so nervous when he got up there to open with a joke was a great thing for him because everyone's like, oh, phew, he's going to be cool.
Yeah, I was like, did David Letterman write that? Yeah. I mean, that's a high-level joke for Belichick. He also said he's moving on.
There's so many fond memories and thoughts that I think about the Patriots and I'll always be a Patriot. I look forward to coming back here, but at this time, we're gonna move on, and I look forward. I'm excited for the future.
Okay, so he's going to move on. He's excited for the future, and I think there's going to be a lot of suitors. Now, before we get into that and who those suitors might be, I think the biggest thing still out there with Belichick, right? He's got the rings. He's got so many accolades. He's most likely going to retire as the wins record holder. He's going to pass Don Shula if he wants to keep coaching. But how much does he have to win right now? Because you've talked about this a lot, about Belichick's legacy taking a hit because of how much the Patriots have struggled in the post-Tom Brady era. I think, listen, as much as you and I will disagree about Belichick's legacy, I do think it's set in stone. I cannot ignore the fact that he is under a lot of pressure. He has to, at the very least, take maybe a woebegone franchise. If he takes over like a Carolina Panthers, he's got to get them to the playoffs multiple times. If he takes over a team that's a little more ready to win, he's got to get them to at least the conference championship, if not the Super Bowl, right?
Oh, my gosh. There's no way Bill Belichick's getting a team to the Super Bowl again. He'll be. I think a successful thing is go to Atlanta and go 10-7 and make the playoffs and lose in the second round. There is.
And you would consider that a success? Like, does that take away the Tom Brady who deserves more credit for the dynasty talk?
Honestly, I'm just being realistic. No, I don't think that would be a success. I think that if he coaches for 5 more years, he's just going to chip away at the Patriots' legacy. I see it very unlikely because there's no precedent. Who has a second act at this age? I hate to say at this age, it's mean, but who name a model of a guy who's had this incredible career at one team and then gone on to a second team and reinvented it that quickly? It just never happened.
Okay, but you also have to acknowledge that Belichick's not just any old coach. It's all about his, and I know this is tough to say coming off a 4-win season, a 4-13 season, but bear with me. Did a lot of winning, did it his way. And not every coach is like a trailblazer in that way. I think that Belichick really is a unique coach. He wasn't, and he, you can't have a precedent. There is no precedent for Belichick. I do think he is a little like a planet and a universe all into himself.
What about him? Just that he's such a great defensive game planner that he'll take the best weapon out on the other team. I don't know. The NFL's moved on. It's not 2004. I'm not sure the Belichick advantage still exists.
But he won in 2018. He's won in so many different eras.
He's won, or the other Tom Brady has won.
Well, that 2018 Super Bowl, that was...
that was
10 points were scored.
The Rams should not have been in that game.
Well, whatever. I mean, you beat who's in front of you.
But I'm just saying, in general, it just doesn't feel like that Belichick magic is going to replicate itself in 2024 NFL. And it's funny, I think of the Belichick teams, I think of the early Super Bowl teams as Bill Belichick's championships, and then the later ones as Tom Brady championships. Yes, it was 13-3 in the Rams, but it felt like they didn't need Brady in the first run. They only needed they needed to be clutch in the fourth quarter. And then it really became about the offense. I just don't see what's the magic of Bill Belichick. If he goes to a middling franchise, how is he going to build the Patriot culture again? There's not enough time, Maggie.
Well, I look at it the other way. I think the Patriots are the ones who are kind of screwed here because nobody can repeat what Belichick did. Look at all the assistant coaches who left the nest and ended up falling on their face. Like, you take Belichick out of New England, is it the Patriot way? It's not the Patriot way. It was Belichick's way. And that was proven over and over again. So you take the guy who's in the middle of it, you move him. I have more faith that Belichick can have success immediately with his next team than I can that the Patriots, especially if you're going to go with a Belichick accolade or disciple. You're going to go with Gerard Mayo. Listen, he might be great, and we'll see, and maybe he can buck the trend. But what's that trend? That trend is a Bill assistant who finds themselves in the big chair and suddenly loses their way.
But why are they screwed not having Bill Belichick? They were 4-13 this year. They presumably, if Bill Belichick comes back, they're going to be 4-13 again. In what way? Where were they headed? I mean, first of all, they're terrible on special teams, which is one of Bill's specialties. They're really good on defense, but in part because nobody has to do any passing against them because their offense is so terrible. This personnel Bill, the GM, has failed in recent years. So there's no reason to keep Belichick. I don't understand what that argument is.
I will give you that clearly there's been an issue with drafting players, no doubt. But I believe that Belichick he's the magic in the middle of it. The fatal flaw for Belichick is they missed on the quarterback. Listen, this happens. Like, they missed on Mac Jones, and Bailey Zappi was like, these guys were carbon copies of themselves, of each other, basically. And do guys miss on quarterbacks? It happens, and that's what happened to the Patriots.
How when you look at this roster, how can you possibly say they missed on quarterback? Look at this wide receiver core.
Okay, but
it's unbelievable. You can have Tom Brady in his prime, and he had won no part of the garbage that Bill Belichick was surrounding him with. These receivers are the worst.
I know, but Perloff, how many times do we see a good quarterback elevate a mediocre receiver core?
A mediocre. Look at their depth chart here: Devontae Parker, Demario Douglas, Tyquan Thornton, Jalen Reagor, Kayshon Boutte. Then they have Slater listed. Juju was hurt and Bourne was hurt. But honestly, Mike Vrabel is going to come in if he's the head coach. He'll have more touchdowns than almost every receiver on that court.
That he scored as a Patriot.
I understand what you're saying about quarterback, but the misses have been wide receiver. That's Bill's famous blind spot.
No, it is. It's also, in my opinion, one of the easiest positions in the NFL to fix.
Well, they've gone the opposite direction. As everyone else gets better at receiver, they've gotten worse and worse and worse every year.
Let's hear from Robert Kraft. So Robert Kraft was speaking yesterday, and he explained why they didn't want to bring in a general manager, someone over Belichick, to try to keep this thing going with the coach.
In my opinion, he earned it. It worked pretty well for most of the time, but all of us need checks and balances in our life. We need what I call it, we need Dr. No's around us, people to protect ourselves from ourselves, protect us from ourselves. I think it's good to have checks and balances, but once you have it, it's kind of hard to pull it away and expect to have the accountability you want.
Yeah, I mean, and Belichick got so much power, it was so centralized, and maybe there weren't enough people in the room who were saying that's a bad idea. Now, I don't know if that's Robert Kraft. He's got a better view than I do. I always thought that behind the scenes, Belichick actually was a little collaborative, but okay, I get it.
What? Based on what?
you give, like, I always thought that he did want the input from his coaches. I don't know.
No. He famously, during the draft, he's the only. There was no war room. It was him and Caserio, and he didn't even listen to his scouts. He was the opposite of collaborative. Well, and that's how he ended up with his wide receiving core.
It's a really bad thing. But okay, so you have that, and I think Kraft was probably right there in that calculation. Right? You give someone all this power, it's gonna seem like you're taking the teeth out of somebody if you take it away. And so I understand.
I get that. I agree. It wouldn't have made any sense in New England for him to have a different GM.
Robert Kraft also talked about why they ultimately decided to move on from Belichick.
Our family is the custodian of this asset, the New England Patriots, and we know how important it is to the psyche of the community, and what's gone on here the last 3-4 years isn't what we want. So we have a responsibility to do what we can to fix it to the best of our ability.
Okay, so that is ultimately why they moved on. And then Kraft was asked if they ever thought about trading Bill Belichick.
He is so valuable in how we could extract something. I didn't think that was right. I didn't think it was right for Tom Brady, who gave us 20 years, and I don't think it's right for Bill, that each of them earned the right to be in a position where they should do what's right for us.
Translation, we made a couple calls and this was not going to be
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. Or not. So there you heard from Kraft a little bit. So two things here. We talk about what's next for Bill Belichick. So they are, obviously, we're not going to trade him. He's free to go wherever he wants. The early report from Adam Schefter yesterday was the Atlanta Falcons was the first team that was kind of linked to him. There's also a mystery team.
Yeah.
A team that right now has a head coach that is very interested in Belichick. Your best guess, who's the mystery team?
Yeah, I mean, everybody's leaning this way that the Eagles are interested in Belichick. By the way, I think the Chargers are a stronger front runner than Atlanta. I mean, Bill's gonna call the Chargers and say, I want to go there because he wants to get that win title. And by far, LA is the best place. I think the
Eagles. He's going to have to compete with maybe Jim Harbaugh.
With Jim Harbaugh, yeah, that's true. But he's going to want a quarterback. Atlanta feels like a very desperate situation. Anyway, the Eagles, because Sirianni's obviously on the hot seat, which is bizarre, 3 straight playoff runs. If Sirianni gets blown out in this first game, then they could easily fire him. There's a lot of connections. Belichick has been on the record a million times saying, I love the GM, Howie Roseman, so he could work with him. They obviously, I think I said this on yesterday's show, they took in Matt Patricia, much like Mo Green took in Fredo Corleone in Godfather 2. They said, Bill called up Jeffrey Lurie, another boss tonight, and said, hey, can you hire Patricia?
Do a solid for my guy.
yeah, for my guy. So I think Philadelphia looks at their roster. They're super old. They said, okay, maybe we can eke out a little more with Belichick. So to me, that makes the most sense.
Yeah, it's starting to make more sense to me, too. And it's funny because you as the Eagle fan, it's like you wouldn't even appreciate it if Belichick went there. It's so you don't want Belichick. And it's other fan bases would die to get Belichick because they've been woebegone or can't get their footing or have no identity or all the things that Belichick could give you. And this is something you would not even want.
If you give me a choice, I would take Vrabel.
Why?
Age. I'm being so mean here, but I just think that everything that you could get out of Belichick, which is getting this team that is right now very disorganized. They seem like they're not listening to the coaches. I think you could get that out of Vrabel. And you're talking Belichick, what, it's a 2-3 year window where you're going to win here? I think you could do that with Vrabel and maybe build something a little longer term. The one reason I like Philadelphia, too, is Belichick, because of there's so much mutual respect. The Eagles and the Patriots are, in some ways, sort of twin franchises. They act in similar ways. They do similar things. I think Belichick would come in there and say, I'm going to work here. See, I think the disastrous path for Belichick is to go to Atlanta where it's a blank slate and this team might stink, or go to Carolina. That'd be bad. But if Philadelphia's ready to win, they make more sense. I'm not high on Belichick anywhere, really, but the Eagles at least go to an old team that's going to play for you, because I think the window is 2 to 3 years, then he's out.
So I think that's interesting because you want a younger Mike Vrabel rather than an older Bill Belichick when you had a coach there in Doug Peterson, won a Super Bowl and still got rid of him 3 years later. Like, clearly the moving on from a coach, I don't know if you're ever getting Andy Reid again, who's going to be there for 15 years or whatever Reid was there. I don't think that happens right now because there's an itchy trigger finger down in Philadelphia because you moved on from Peterson even though he brought you the Lombardi.
Stupidest reason ever, but Philadelphia fans would live and die for Mike Vrabel. Oh my God. This the style, quote unquote blue collar style. They would be so riled up for that guy because the most favorite coach of all time in Philadelphia is Buddy Ryan, just because he wanted to kill the other team. Vrabel has that intensity. Belichick, I don't think would connect with the fans as much.
So for me, the mystery team has got to be Dallas. And I don't know, and we all don't know what's going to happen in this playoff game against the Packers. They're a 7-point favorite. I think that came down from 7.5 to 7. So some money was obviously coming in on the Green Bay side of this a little.
I mean, second biggest spread of the weekend. Yeah, this should be a rather easy assignment for the Cowboys. If they blow this, that'd be a huge disappointment.
On paper, this is easy, and the Dallas Cowboys have enjoyed a really strong home field advantage, and the Packers defense is bad, and like all the things that would line up and just point you towards an easy Dallas victory. If somehow that script does get flipped, I do think that this is an obvious Belichick landing spot.
Is there a win now?
Win now. You got the quarterback. I think there's no question on who's picking the players here. And Dallas has done a great job of picking receivers. I mean, look at CeeDee Lamb now. Looks like one of the top 3 receiver in the league, how he's come on in the second half of the season. Top 5, definitely. And I think Belichick can do this. I mean, I think Dan Quinn might move on. Maybe he gets the Seattle job, so you don't have to worry about Belichick as a defensive coach and a really, established defensive coordinator. It could be really simpatico.
Yeah, it also feels to me like that is a high bust potential because there's talking about pressure. You're going from some pressure since Brady left. No one really had the Patriots in the Super Bowl. If he goes to Dallas and doesn't win big time, that's going to be a huge disappointment. And let's face it, Dallas, as much talent as they've had over the years, they have not been able to get through this wall. So I see that immediately as an implosion. I feel like that's going to be like Emmitt Smith going to the Cardinals. If Belichick goes to the Cowboys and they don't win, people are going to kill him. Talking about hurting his legacy, if I would tell Bill, I don't know, I'd be careful about that because you could look really bad losing there.
2 questions for you. How much pressure is on Belichick to win at the next spot? Because his legacy is taking slings and arrows right now. I don't get it.
Well, it's interesting. If he goes to the Chargers or the Cowboys or the Eagles, he has a lot of pressure to win immediately. If he goes to the Panthers or the Falcons, is it a different? So you're talking about like what kind of future he has?
Well, to be honest, like we're putting him up against Brady, right?
Yeah.
So we're talking about the pressure. It's not the pressure to chase down Don Shula. I mean, I guess I don't think fans really care about that. The pressure is Brady, and Brady's now retired, so, he's not going to, Brady did what he was going to do.
Yeah.
It's done. It's all out there. Can Belichick close the gap, tilt the scales back a little, make this a little more even Steven? A lot is riding on this next opportunity.
I totally agree, and I don't think it's going to happen. I just do not see this working out well for Bill Belichick.
Man, I'd be careful about betting against somebody who's as rejuvenated.
Dude, they just lost 17-3 to the Jets.
That was particularly painful, I'm sure, but you talk about giving someone new blood, like new life,
show me the model where that's happened, where it's worked. I was just looking at some Hall of Fame coaches, and they all fail in their little comeback efforts.
You know where it worked? For Tom Brady. Tom Brady, it was as bad as it could possibly, well, not as bad as it could possibly be, but it was bad. His final pass in Foxborough, a pick 6 against the Titans. I mean,
because Bill Belichick built such an awful roster around him.
I'm just saying, look at what happened. He got rejuvenated. He talked about how re-energized he was about this new challenge and all of it. I think if Aaron Rodgers hadn't torn his Achilles, I think you probably would have saw a big theme of that, of kind of running your course through one place.
Give me a coach, though.
Well,
I mean, look at Joe Gibbs, Mike Shanahan, Jimmy Johnson. They all, the best Hall of Fame coaches, their second acts were terrible.
Listen, they're none of those guys, and I know they're great coaches. Joe Gibbs won Super Bowls.
He's not far behind Belichick.
He won 3 Super Bowls with 3 different quarterbacks. I get it. I'm not here to denigrate Joe Gibbs, but Belichick is in a different class.
Jason Cole, a longtime NFL writer, ranked his top 5 coaches of all time. He put Gibbs 1, Belichick 2, Bill Walsh 3 today. He's not that far of a different class. Mike Shanahan's not that far of a different class. And Jimmy Johnson's right there, too. I just think,
why isn't Mike Shanahan in the Hall of Fame?
I have no idea. I mean, he invented a ton of stuff.
No, I get it, too. Yeah. But you're talking about this is slam dunk that he's better than Belichick. Do you think Belichick's waiting 5 seconds before he gets in the Hall of Fame?
No, I didn't say slam dunk is better. I'm saying he's in the same class. These are most of these great coaches do not have, they need time. They need to hit at the right time, and it doesn't feel like a 17-year-old coach starting over is going to be able to build the Patriots culture. In Atlanta, what has Atlanta ever won anything in any sport except in baseball?
855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227 at college football. I mean, Athens isn't that far. Georgia's done nicely for themselves.
I'm well aware. Every time I've been in Atlanta, I see Georgia hats and not Falcons hats.
Yeah, well, I would be wearing a Georgia hat too. 855-212-4CBS. You're welcome to weigh in. How much pressure on Belichick to win at the next stop? And also the mystery team for Belichick. Perloff says it's the Eagles. I think it's the Cowboys. What about you? 855-212-4CBS. This is going to be a very fun show. We've got weather talk. I know, everybody. Settle down. I know how much this excites all of you.
Way to sell it.
Weather talk, major weather events that are going to have an impact on multiple playoff games this weekend. We'll get you up to speed with the latest. Maggie and Perloff, CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
NFL Westwood One for free, sponsored by AutoZone. All season long, you can listen to every Westwood One broadcast of the NFL live on the NFL app by asking Alexa to open Westwood One Sports or on the Odyssey app. Get in the zone, AutoZone. AutoZone's free battery testing and charging is available for free at your local AutoZone. Get in the zone, AutoZone. Restrictions apply. Okay, we had an interesting pre-show debate, and I'm going to spring it on you again, Maggie.
Okay.
The Chiefs-Dolphins is going to be a weather event, which is interesting in itself. But I think even without that weather, I think this game would be better on a neutral, warm field. This is, to me, the game of the weekend. And because every other game has major flaws, this would have been as even a playoff game as you had. And you have the Chiefs, who I actually heard on a podcast recently with our buddy Peter Schrager, the head of NFL broadcasting, said the Chiefs are slowly replacing the Cowboys as the highest rated team. So I think the Chiefs-Dolphins would have been the must-watch game, regardless of the fact that it's going to be -1 degrees.
Well, listen, take it up with Tua. He threw that interception at the end of the Bills game, and if not, they probably would have gone down and scored, and they would have been the number 2 seed, and they would have been hosting this game in beautiful Miami.
Oh, but then you would have had Kansas City Buffalo, or would it have worked out that if it had been Kansas City Buffalo, forget, that'd be the highest rated game in history because Buffalo rates really well too.
That's the possible second round matchup.
Yeah, so that'll do huge.
I said I thought this was good for Peacock. This is where it started because it's going to be a streaming only game. I go, oh, well, this is going to be good for Peacock because people are going to tune in. I think because the weather adds a layer of intrigue. And you were like, this was already the most interesting game of the weekend anyway.
Taylor Swift's going to be there. Who cares about zero?
She's been there all season.
I hate to say it. That might be why they're doing so well. But the Chiefs had 5 of the top 10 most watched television shows of last year, and they had 16 of the top 100. The Cowboys had 17, and the Eagles.
You mean of the calendar year 2023?
2023. Okay. The Chiefs. Remember they had the Lions season opener. They had this Jets game that I think rated crazy because maybe people thought Aaron Rodgers was going to show up. I have no idea. But I just think. Also, the cold makes this a little worse to me because if it's a warm weather game, I have no idea what's going to happen in that game. The Chiefs can barely beat they can't beat anybody right now. The Dolphins are injured. I think that would have been the best game. I'm actually disappointed by the cold weather in this. It's not an attraction for me.
Well, and this is where I say this. I feel like every year, and people hate me for it, I think everything should be in a dome.
I'm feeling you right now. I generally do not like that take, but right now, I totally agree.
We can talk just specifically about Kansas City, Miami, and how this could be a great equalizer of this cold, or I don't know if Miami's going to... Like, when it gets this cold, where kickoff's supposed to be 3 degrees... with wind chill at -30, okay? Right. That's not like, oh, well, one team's used to it and the other team isn't. No one's used to -30. Like,
but you can't ignore the fact that one team is in Miami and one team's in Kansas City. Always had cold playoff games. Miami has no experience with this, and they're 0-10 in their last 10 games under 40, and their quarterback's from Hawaii. I mean, this is not working out well for Miami.
No, I get it, and it's a clear advantage, I guess, for Kansas City. But when you talk about cold weather games, we're talking about like 30 or 24. It doesn't, when you talk about the ice bowl level, you're talking, you throw everything out because that's going to be just as bad, I think, for both teams.
But what is the one super weapon? What's the one superpower the Miami Dolphins have? It's the deep ball to Tyreek Hill. How on earth is that going to work? How is Tua going to throw that? And how is Tyreek Hill going to catch that frozen rock 40 yards downfield? It just seems like this neutralizes everything Miami does well. Maybe they use that famous run game, but even that, Kansas City's pretty good on run defense.
Listen, here's the thing that anyone who lives in a cold weather place, and I know that we're on all over the country, and for people who are listening to us right now in Arizona, like, you don't have to worry about anything like this. But the biggest thing with the cold is actually not the cold. It's the wind. The wind makes it so much worse. When it's just cold, it's awful, but you can kind of get through it. The wind is what makes it infinitely worse, more bitter, more just biting, all of that. And that's where the Buffalo game really comes into play. I do not know how the NFL can play a game anywhere if the winds are going to be 50 miles an hour. First of all, that seems wildly dangerous to have, 75,000 people come together when there's winds of 50 miles an hour. Like, that's almost hurricane level wind.
Talking about Buffalo.
Yeah, Buffalo.
But it is right now Friday at 6:30. We could have 11 feet of snow or 40 degrees and sunny in Buffalo. I followed your team close enough to know that any weather report in that state is completely irrelevant.
Listen, they didn't know last year that it was going to snow for the Bengal game. It was like, hey, it's going to be clear. It's like, wait a minute.
What's the deal with that valley? Like, I actually heard someone talking about the weather. Well, it could be one of the worst weather games in history of the NFL, or it might be 40 and sunny. No one has any idea.
I don't know. My thoughts on this would probably get me in trouble.
The under keeps going down on that game, and the under keeps coming down on Miami, Kansas City. I disagree with you today because minus 30, I don't care what the wind is. Minus 30 wind chill. It doesn't matter if it's how hard it's blowing. That's crazy. Can you imagine the kicker kicking that thing in minus 30
How about
degrees?
50-mile-an-hour winds? Your kicker might as well stay home and watch from the couch. Let's put that as a poll question, Carlos. What's worse, playing in minus 30 or 50-mile-an-hour winds? I'm telling you, it's the wind. Bogusch, weigh in here.
So it's one or the other? Yeah,
Yes.
I'll be cold. Let me be cold. I can try to block that out, wear a jacket, sit on the hot bench, but the wind messes everything up.
Wear a jacket.
Yeah.
What, are you going to be like a running back with a coat on?
Isn't it always cool when you just go back to the South and somebody puts a huge coat over your shoulders and the hood? I want that.
I've tried to look for those coats to buy them. The only one I ever found was on Amazon, and it was triple XL. I'm like, it's going to be a tent. It's like probably some defensive tackle probably put it up for sale.
Yeah. So knowing Buffalo weather as well as you do, can we trust these 50-mile-an-hour wind reports, or do you think that it's still a huge variable there?
No, the wind, they don't mess around. I mean, you're talking about lake, coming off a lake. It is brutal, bitter, awful.
I ask you because we're doing our picks later.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to wonder which is the better weather game to bet against. It's kind of tricky, right? Because that wind could mean like a punt goes 5 yards. You could kick it up in the air and it could blow back.
You're going to have to squib everything. I'm serious. You talk about what's the big weapon for the Miami Dolphins is those deep balls to Tyreek Hill or to Jalen Waddle. I mean, listen, the Bills are usually trying to find Stephon Diggs for a couple big plays. You wipe all that out if you have a 50-mile-an-hour wind.
Yeah, but first of all, Jalen Waddle and minus 30, that dude can't stay on the field in 60-degree weather. There's no way he's going to last. This is never have I seen a game shape up worse for one team. Miami, just the weather, the injury reports, nobody's practicing. The whole thing is a disaster for this team.
Yeah, you think this is the most intriguing game of the weekend.
I do. I mean, look at the spreads. It's still super close, and I trust Vegas more than anybody. I mean, yeah, what game would you go with?
I think it's got to be the Packers and the Dallas Cowboys. Listen, I know that spread is bigger. It's a touchdown now. But I think for what's at stake, history of the teams, what's at stake, like if Dallas flames out in the first round, buy a hat and hold on to it. There's got to be changes coming. Yeah,
the Packers feel like a JV team in this playoffs. Like they're going to be good next year. It is not happening this year. That's why it's a huge spread. The Packers let up 30 points to the Carolina Panthers. How on earth are they going to stop the Dallas Cowboys? I agree. That's going to be a good rating. I think that by far Chiefs Dolphins most intriguing game.
I mean, Lions Rams not bad either.
Oh yeah, that one's good too. Can I have that one?
Sure. It's
like
yours.
always, give me three options.
I'll give you
bandwagon.
I'll give you Eagles Bucks.
Eagles Bucks isn't that bad either, and Browns and Texans seems kind of cool. I mean, I can buy it on the Joe Flacco, CJ Stroud angle. Yeah,
I'm into that Texans. Yeah. I'll tell you right now, you guys can both watch that Eagles Bucks game with Jalen Hurts going to be throwing left-handed, and Baker Mayfield as in practice in a month is going to be a bad one. That's the one that stands out as a sort of inferior game to me.
Lucky us. We get it Monday night. Andrew Bogusch says headlines. Yo.
Guys, good morning. The Portland Trailblazers were in OKC last night, but were they?
Shea between the rings, behind the back dribble, shakes Kamara, down the lane, dashing, lays it up and lays it into the left hand. He's at 30-plus again with 31, making it look easy tonight. 11 of 15 shooting, 99-52 Thunder on 63% from the field, blistering the Nets and the Blazers defense.
Yeah, he said it, 99-52 Thunder. That was Matt Pinto on Thunder Radio. OKC on its way to a 139-77 destruction of those Blazers. 62 points, ties for the fifth largest margin of victory in NBA history. Good job, Chauncey Billups.
This was, sheesh. Not much really good to say about this one for us.
Yeah, not even a little bit. The Thunder, by the way, are the victims of the worst loss ever. They took a 73-point beating from the Grizzlies back in December 2021.
By the way, NBA, ugh. Last night they put on the Bucks and the Celtics, the best two teams in the East. It was supposed to be, they had to switch away because it was such a blowout.
37
but they
points at
couldn't
halftime.
find a non-blowout to switch to because these back-to-backs, it's because the NBA, no one in the league cares at all about the regular season. So why are fans supposed to care?
Wait.
Look at that game last night.
Can I just tell you what the funniest part about that was? So Ernie Johnson has to come on TNT, all right? And he goes, all right, well, we thought this was going to be a good game, but now the Celtics and Bucks aren't going to play any of their starters in the second half, so we're going to turn away. But we can't send you to Thunder Trailblazers because that game also is horrible. He goes, so here's the Knicks. And I was like, oh, you got to be kidding. Like,
Without Luka.
No, they had to, they basically had to apologize and be like, listen, we're not doing this, because it's New York. The Knicks game's the only game, and it was a 25-point differential at the time.
And I didn't even know that they were allowed to do that. Do they do that often?
No.
Switch up. Well, also, too, what happened to that load management rule? Does anybody at all care about that? It doesn't feel like any of my superstars are out there ever.
Well, I was going to mention this later this morning. The NBA yesterday finally released the data they said they had that proved that load management doesn't prevent injuries. So
yeah,
maybe something else is at play because these guys, you mentioned the Celtics played the night before. I think everybody played last night and they were down by 37 at halftime. So maybe give them a night off and just punt on some games.
Did they have the same firm that showed the NFL that there are just as many injuries on artificial turf as grass?
Same people.
Yeah, any league puts out any study, just completely ignore.
I'm actually surprised that Aaron Rodgers didn't link the Jeffrey Epstein list to the NBA. They want to just distract you from the NBA releasing their study here. And this is ripe for a conspiracy theory.
By Joel Embiid not playing again, injury, who knows, whatever.
You want to know what the NBA did?
Yeah.
They were like, you know what? NFL playoffs are starting. No one's going to pay attention to this anyway. Let's start sitting, guys.
Oh, it doesn't matter. It's just really the back-to-back, too, the way the schedule plays out. Nobody wins on them. Anyway, whatever. I'm not going to complain. I'll be so into the playoffs this year.
Milwaukee, by the way, eventually beat Boston 135-102. The Mavs held off those Knicks 128-124. And again, Luka was out with a bum ankle. The Suns took care of the Lakers 127-109. Bradley Beal, Devin Booker combining for 68 points. The NBA is reportedly close to making the draft a 2-night event in June, something I think nobody wants. One night for each round. The Players Association has to sign off on this. Yeah, for some reason, they think the second round needs more attention.
Well, they're wrong.
You know, here's one thing. They are, but I like this because right now, and maybe this is an East Coast bias because it's so late, there's no chance you're going to stay up for the second round. If it's the next night, I'm probably tuning into that. There's a better chance I'm tuning into that. Let's put it that way.
I guess.
It's like 1 a.m. on the East Coast by the time they start the second round.
I just think that it feels like 85% of the audience loses interest by pick 20 because then we're into buying picks, stashing guys in Europe. Who's this guy? I don't know him.
5 years away from being 5 years away or whatever.
And, I guess there's people who said this will make trades better or easier because teams have more time to digest things and figure things out. And the second round can be time between picks can be a little bigger to let things breathe and talk it. But to me, the thing they needed to do is make the G League a bigger deal and make those picks for the G League and even tack on a third round. And then it makes it a little, to me, that's a better storyline. Okay, that guy's going to go play for the Delaware 67 or whatever they're called, and then you might follow that storyline.
This year might be literally the only player that anyone in this room, the five of us, heard of in this year's draft could be Bronny. So maybe this is a Bronny thing where Bronny will go in the second round. I
don't think Bronny's going in the second round, but
you think he's definitely going in the first round?
I think it's the LeBron
or does he go back?
Bump, I don't know. But
just because of health. I mean, the fact that he just literally just started playing basketball again.
Yeah, and had that cardiac arrest. I like Bogusch's idea. I think if you go to the second day, I wonder if they add a third round.
And make it a real direct connection to the G League.
I tell you right now, I'm looking at a mock draft. No one's watching the first round. This is going to get a 0 rating.
There's 3 Australian guys, right, at the top of that list, or guys playing in Australia?
I don't know. I'm just looking at the schools. Colorado, Baylor, France, Pittsburgh, G League, Kentucky, finally, France, G League, Miami, USC. So
the Baylor guy, I didn't know who he was until EJ yelled at us for not knowing who he was.
EJ is a big NBA draft, Nick, but last year was really good. But now I think the NBA draft's about to hit hard times. You're right, G League. No one gets to watch G League. When I was a kid, I saw Chris Webber play in college. Then he went in the draft. I love the NBA draft. I'm not watching the first round, second round, or third round.
What is this, some kind of protest?
Yes.
Yes.
Because the NBA draft used to be
Holland Tunnel.
Yeah, I know. Oh my gosh, don't even mention that.
You guys have to admit, the NFL draft has lapped the NBA draft as far as interest.
Yeah, and that-
2 or 3 laps.
I know, and think about it.
It used to be the opposite.
But people don't know a lot of the guys who are going in the 4th, 5th, 6th rounds of the NFL draft, but we're still watching.
Well, the Saturday at noon. Yeah, I mean,
It's all about timing, I'm telling you.
no, it's not. I think it's because the
Well,
college
in the
football
NFL.
players have 3 years of we've seen them. I
Yes.
think that's a huge factor. And NFL is just more popular right now. This year's draft, you're not going to want it the first round or the second round.
Speaking of hoops, college-wise, another upset on the men's side. Number 23, Gonzaga falling at Santa Clara last night, 77-76, snapping a 26-game win streak in that series. Number 24, FAU, did escape Tulane 85-84 on 2 free throws with less than a second left. The Yankees busy yesterday, adding veteran righty Marcus Stroman, 2 years and $37 million, and they avoid arbitration with Juan Soto. It's a $31 million agreement for the coming season. That is the largest such deal ever, topping the $30 million Shohei got from the Angels a year ago. And those Winnipeg Jets still can't lose. 8 wins in a row after sneaking past Chicago 2-1. The Jets also won a 14-game point streak. Both those runs are franchise records. Guys, back to you.
Bogusch, thank you so much. Coming up, I've got to get something on the record before the weekend begins. I don't want anyone to accuse me after the weekend of saying, oh, you're just a reaction in the moment.
Can't wait.
I'm going on the record now before the weekend. What's it about? You'll find out next. Maggie and Perloff, CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 2 minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. "45 seconds remaining. "30 seconds remaining. "15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Welcome back. Maggie, great Andrew Perloff on this Friday. Still got a lot more Belichick and Saban and Pete Carroll stuff for you, but we have Super Wildcard Weekend coming up, and I would like to get something on the record, if I may. I don't want on Monday people to accuse me of just living in the moment or being overreactive or being emotional or anything like that. I'm going on the record before the game telling you that I still want the Buffalo Bills to fire Sean McDermott and hire another head coach this offseason. And I'm saying that before the game. So I'm not coming in if they somehow lose to Pittsburgh in a weird weather game. I'm not just saying, Monday morning quarterback. No. I'm saying this on Friday. I'm saying this before the playoffs start. I want them to move on from the head coach who has done so much for the Bills. This is like an appreciation for McDermott, while I'm also saying I think the run has ended. And here's why. Perloff, did you know that Sean McDermott is the fourth longest tenured head coach that we have right now in the league?
That sounds good.
Mike Tomlin,
Good.
John Harbaugh,
Very good.
and Andy Reid
Great.
are the three who are longer tenured than Sean McDermott.
Yeah.
Then right after him, and this was basically guys who were kind of all hired in the same offseason, but McDermott was hired first, Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan.
Good. Wait, so is this a good thing or a bad thing?
I ask you, of that list of of coaches that I just gave you, Tomlin, John Harbaugh, Andy Reid, Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, Sean McDermott has not been to a Super Bowl, has been to one conference championship game, is not in the stratosphere right now of these other coaches. If any of these guys got fired, I'm talking about Tomlin, Harbaugh, Andy Reid, McVay, or Shanahan, the line would be out the door for any franchise to sign any of these guys. If Sean McDermott gets fired, does he ever get another head coaching job again, I ask you? And it's not just because he's a defensive side of the ball, because we're seeing now Vrabel and Dan Quinn and other defensive guys are going to get head coaching jobs. I'm sorry. He has had the time with Josh Allen. He's had the time. He's gone through multiple offensive coordinators. He's gone through defense. He now is the defensive coordinator. There's no more else to look. If you don't win a Super Bowl this year, why would you stick with the coach where all the other people in his class, if you will, or in this tier of tenured coaches have more Super Bowl appearances, hell, have actual Super Bowls, more conference championships, have done it with lesser quarterbacks? Like, I'm sorry. I appreciate McDermott. The franchise was an absolute joke before he got there. They were a mess. That does not grant you a lifetime appointment as the head coach of the football team.
You know, it's funny. You just read the three guys are Harbaugh, McDermott, Reed, and Tomlin. The 1 seed in the AFC, the Bills, the 2 seed in the AFC, and the Chiefs, the 3 seed in the AFC. So I think continuity obviously wins. Like Tomlin, the 7s, John Harbaugh had downtime. They didn't fire him, and now they're the number 1 seed.
Because he had a Super Bowl in his pocket, though.
Yeah, but I mean, they were 500 for a bit there a few years ago. John Harbaugh was on the hot seat. Yeah, I mean, be careful what you wish for, because double-digit wins is not that easy. They're the number 2 seed in the AFC.
Perloff, how they got that seed. They backed into it. They had to go
They've
on.
They've won their last 6 games.
And how have they, by the skin of their teeth?
Not really. There was no way that they were just playing with their food against New England.
Okay, well, that's bad coaching. Because if you should be blowing out teams like the Chargers with Easton Stick. You shouldn't have to sweat that out for a 2-point win. You should be able to. The Jets just won by double digits against the Patriots. That should not be a sweated out game for you, and they have been. Like, this is the other part of it. You actually have good candidates on the market right now for coaches. So I'm not saying fire Sean McDermott and, all right, let's start interviewing everyone under the sun. Jim Harbaugh.
Why would Jim Harbaugh?
On the record, I want to get it out here today before the Bills play a playoff game. I would like them to move on from Sean McDermott, and I would like them to hire Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah. Okay, if you're going to give me Harbaugh, I'd take that. But there's a way Harbaugh is taking Buffalo.
Why? This should be an attractive job. You have Josh Allen. You have a good offense. You have bones on defense.
Who are your receivers next year?
Well, you're going to need somebody. I don't know. I think Stephon Diggs is going to be back. They've paid him a lot of money. Like, I know he's not happy all the time, but it's not because the Bills aren't paying him.
And isn't your defense getting a little old in the tooth?
They are at certain spots, but they've also drafted pretty well on defense.
Yeah, for some reason, maybe it's just weather. If the Chargers are open and the Bills are open, I feel like Harbaugh goes to California because
he's coming from Michigan.
Yeah, I don't know why.
It's freezing in Michigan.
He was at Stanford. He was at San Francisco. It just feels more natural.
I know, but if the Bears' job was open, people would say the Bears with Jim Harbaugh, and the weather there is just as bad.
I've gotten the strong sense that the Bears have offered Harbaugh that job 5 times, and he said, no, thank you.
Well, we don't know that.
Generally, though, the Bears and Harbaugh have not come together, and there's a reason. I think Harbaugh wants to go to California. Yeah, okay.
Listen, he interviewed with the Vikings, who play half of their division games outside.
Well, okay, you're obviously... appreciate Bill Belichick. Would you rather have Belichick than McDermott next year?
I'd want Harbaugh. I want to do it.
Okay,
for Harbaugh.
I can't say Harbaugh takes another job and Belichick's there. Would you replace him?
I would.
I mean, it's better after you just said that.
I got it. I get a little like, I don't love it when you do the retread in the division, but I do it. I'd still do it. Jim Harbaugh is my number 1, and he is available maybe. Like, if Sean McDermott, if they have a bad season next year, you're firing him anyway. You might as well get ahead of it when you actually have this great candidate who's here, who's ready to take you to the Super Bowl.
Love it.
Calling it now. 855-212-4CBS. 855-212-4227. Thanks to friends from Buffalo Rumblings for some of the stats there. Appreciate it. Coming up next, Nick Saban explains why he's retiring.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
She was the Heisman Trophy winner in 1986. He left her off the ballot. They are Maggie and Perloff on CBS Sports Radio.
Nick Saban opening up on why he decided now was the time to step away. Hey, welcome to the show, Maggie Gray, Andrew Perloff. It was tons of coaching news yesterday. Saban retiring, Belichick parting ways with the Patriots. Before that, Pete Carroll.
Don't forget our guy.
I know.
Matt Eberflus sticking around. Belichick may say goodbye, but another legend remains.
Yes, a legend in your mind. All right, let's hear a little from Nick Saban about why now was the time. He said his age was making it harder for him to do the job.
I actually thought that in hiring coaches, recruiting players, that my age started to become a little bit of an issue. People wanted assurances that I would be here for 3 years, 5 years, whatever, and that got harder and harder for me to be honest about.
Saban also said he felt like last season particularly took a toll on him, the season we just came off of, and it didn't meet the standards of the past.
This team was fun to coach, and they came a long ways, and I was really proud, of the way everybody bought in and did what they did to have the success that we had. But at the same time, I felt like I could have done a better job if I was younger.
Yeah, and he also said there were, apparently he told the team, Perloff, that there were some health concerns, but he clarified that and said, no, it was more the grind of the season, just like how much it took out of him. He said there's no health concerns with him. Miss Terry is fine. I know there's some rumors going around on the internet yesterday about that. No truth to any of it. It's just he couldn't assure people he'd be there for much longer, and he's tired.
They must have been killing him on the recruiting trail. The opposing coaches saying, oh, you're going to go to Alabama? We know that Nick's gone in a year. Making up probably, if there are any health concerns, it was probably Kirby Smart's recruiters out there saying, yeah, Nick's on death's door. Don't go there.
Dan Lanning basically put out a hype video yesterday, and part of it was to say, I'm staying at Oregon. And at the end it goes, and if your coach is leaving, come here because I'm staying. I mean, coaches use this stuff all the time.
It's a brutal industry in that sense. So that's what I hear with Nick Saban there. It's funny. He kept saying he was having fun this year. There's a lot of these videos that came out that are amazing of Nick Saban at the end of blowouts screaming at the third team for not aligning in the right defense. That dude, there's no, he can't slow it down.
Fun.
He's 0 to 60. He's at 65 miles per hour the entire time coaching. He's so crazy about details that I don't think he can ease into retirement. Like kind of Joe Pa and Bobby Bowden, those guys, they delegated easily toward the end, to their detriment, obviously. But I don't think Nick Saban could go at half speed.
So that brings up a great point. So Nick Saban is going to retire, but he's going to have an office at the facility. Not just that, he is going to assist in the search for his successor. He's going to be a part of it. And I think he's definitely earned that. And I don't know why, with someone who has the institutional knowledge and brilliance of Nick Saban, why wouldn't you want him to have a hand in who is the next head coach? And I think all of that stuff is totally fair. Where I have to stop short of that is, and I don't know how it's going to be, but you mentioned it's hard. It could be hard for someone like Nick Saban to just turn it off.
Oh, yeah.
Once you hire that next guy, you can't have Saban in the building every day. And I'm sorry, game days, fine. Talking to the team every once in a while, fine. But you have to let that next person do the job. They're already going to be coaching in the shadow of Saban with the 6 college championships, national championships at Alabama, and the 7 overall, and he's a living legend. Like I said, he's already got a statue out front. But you have to step aside and really be okay with stepping aside and letting the next person do it how they want to do it.
I think a lot depends on who is going to be in that position. Is it going to be an outsider who they bring in, or is it going to be a Nick Saban former assistant? So is it going to be that front runners right now are like Mike Norvell from Florida State and Kalen DeBoer? They have no connection to Saban. That is uncomfortable, right? They have no, at least that I know, maybe Norvell does, but they're not Saban guys. So therefore that'll be bad. But if it's Lane Kiffin or if it's, who's the other, Lane Kiffin or Dabo, they view, I think that would work actually better.
Dabo's not actually a Saban guy. He's just an Alabama guy more, right?
Yeah. Oh, okay. Dabo never worked with Saban or played for Saban? I guess not. But, that's funny.
No,
You're right.
Played for Gene Stallings.
You're right. Dabo,
Saban.
Why does Dabo feel like a Saban guy? Anyway, I think that would be more comfortable. I mean, Kalen DeBoer comes in wants to bring whole new ideas to Alabama. That would be hard, I think.
I think it's hard for either. Quite frankly, even if it's Lane Kiffin, which, again, I do not think it's going to be. I think there was too much bad blood. People in Alabama have told you as much. Greg McElroy has said it to our pal Zach Gelb. Pete Thamel has reported this. I mean, they fired Lane Kiffin before the championship game. I don't know if that's somebody who an athletic director is like, all right, I'm going to stake my reputation and, this is going to be the biggest decision I make as the athletic director at Alabama, this massive hire. I'm going to do that with a guy who I fired not that long ago. It doesn't seem like to jive, but I just think whether it's somebody who is in the building and it's a former assistant or it's someone from totally outside, I'm sorry. Once you decide on that person, Saban's got to retreat to the back. And I hope that doesn't sound disrespectful at all to Saban. I think it's, if you really care about Alabama and if you really want to give the next guy a true shot, you can't just be hovering, especially with a lot of guys you might have recruited. You can't just be hovering over the program like that.
I mean, I think the reality is they need him as a fundraiser in a huge way. Alabama, I've said this before, I don't think Alabama has as much money as everybody thinks they do. I think Alabama is a smaller state, and they are competing with A&M, who has more money, the gigantic school and has more. I think they need Saban to get NIL money. So I would want him hanging around for that reason alone.
Okay, but here's the thing. They might not have as much as like A&M or whatever, but they have enough. It's not the haves and the have-nots here, and Saban was the great equalizer. I don't think that at all.
Oh, you don't think that they would have money problems if Saban's gone? It's Kalen DeBoer. You don't think that LSU and Texas A&M are going to gain an NIL advantage?
Not at all.
First of all, A&M already has an NIL advantage.
Right, and it doesn't do anything. So
well, not yet, but it just started last year. I mean, it's been
a couple of years now.
But the real NIL era is just kicking in. I think you want Nick Saban to get the boosters to ante up for players.
Okay, maybe, but that's not being around the facility and being at practices and all that stuff because, again, I think that's going to be an urge that Nick Saban is going to have to. No one's going to tell him, hey, coach, hit the bricks. That's going to be something he's going to have to understand, and he's going to have discipline. I can't be around at every practice.
Yeah, I think Saban, the other thing too, Saban's not like Belichick. He gets along really well with the people around him. He's not, Belichick keeps everything closed in. It's all Belichick's giant mind running the Patriots. Saban seems to love his assistants. And all his former assistants sing Nick Saban's praises all the time. Feels like he has good relationships.
Well,
I think it's easier I think it'll be an easier transition than you do. I think he'll hang out, but he loves these other coaches. He definitely supports them, and he's never been a do it my way and I'm going to backstab guy.
No, it's not about that. It's about if you struggle, people are going to, and fans of Alabama are going to be like, you got Saban sitting right there. It's a constant reminder, not that you would need it or you have to remind Alabama fans, but it's going to be a constant reminder that this next guy isn't Saban.
Yeah, and you're definitely going to struggle, by the way, because college football history tells us the second a legend steps down, programs step back. And Alabama is, I think, definitely headed that way.
The one program I can see that, did a fine job with it and it seemed to work out okay was actually the North Carolina Tar Heels, where Roy Williams steps down and you had, is their coach? I'm blanking. Hubert Davis, who made it to the championship game literally the next year. And you had Roy Williams, and he was in the stands, and I think he was at practice a little bit, and that ended up being okay. But again, that's because North Carolina had success right away.
Yeah, but is North Carolina? Yeah, I don't know if that North Carolina is North Carolina anymore.
Well, maybe not, but that first season, it got a lot of people off of Davis's back.
Yeah, and I think Alabama could have one good year next year, but I think they're going to go the way of all the other great. Florida State after Bowden retired. Penn State had a lot going on.
Yeah, that was very different.
Obviously, the famous one is Nebraska after Tom Osborne, Oklahoma after Barry Switzer. You go down the list, this is what happens.
Yeah, USC after Pete Carroll.
Yeah, this is exactly what happens to programs. I think next year they're in pretty good shape. If Jalen Milroe comes back, they're going to be a really good team. But no, there's no way they keep this going. You got to have Saban in that building because you need money. I'm sorry, I know you think Alabama has plenty, but look at the dogs around them. Look at what, the second Saban announced his retirement, you don't think Brian Kelly was calling all his recruits and saying, get over here, let's go?
This is worked out quite well for Brian Kelly. I mean, you leave Notre Dame, you sign a $100 million contract, you get to LSU, you have success the first season where you go to the SEC championship game, you beat Bama in Tuscaloosa, in Baton Rouge. It's like, okay, so you didn't flame out in the first season, so you don't immediately have crazy fan revolt. And now Nick Saban retires. Amazing.
Well, except that you just lost the Heisman Trophy winner, and Georgia brought back their entire team. So it might not happen next year for LSU.
I'm not that not worried about their offense. Maybe the defense of LSU. I'm a little worried about them, but I think the offense is going to be okay. I know.
Yeah, I mean, I think I look at a lot of odds. I mean, obviously Georgia's a strong number one, and then everyone's assuming Harbaugh is gone. So Alabama, yeah, I think LSU might take a little step back without Jaden Daniels. He was basically in the entire team all year long. But regardless, though, there's a lot of opportunity here to Alabama. I don't see Alabama. If Alabama's next coach, if Mike Norvell wins a national championship, I'll be shocked.
You know, Mike Norvell might be looking at that job with a little bit more, starry eyes, considering Florida State just recently got in trouble for NIL violation.
I mean, Florida State is going to blow up the entire NCAA. The NCAA is at war with Florida State because they got too mad because they weren't in there, and they're mad at Jim Harbaugh because he wants to pay the players. Like the NCAA is they're messing with fire going after Florida State.
Florida State wants to first blow up the ACC.
I think they want to go after the NCAA too. I think they hate everybody.
Well, the college football playoff are the people who kept them out.
I know, but they're just looking for an organizational body to go after.
I'm telling you, it's the ACC first because they want to get out of that ACC. Yeah. They want to get out of the conference so badly right now.
I mean, there's still bad blood. Did you see right before the title game, Greg Sankey from the SEC said, "I'm really disappointed at how mad Florida State was. Like, there's a powers that be battle against Florida State, and guess who is always in the wrong? The powers that be in college football. 100% of the time, they are wrong.
That's funny. 855-212-4CBS. We have more on Florida State and the trouble that they're in right now. What does it mean for Mike Norvell and how hard could he be lobbying? I have no idea for that Alabama job. No clue. But let's go to the phones. We were talking before Super Wildcard Weekend. I wanted to get it out on the record as a Bills fan. I want them to move on from Sean McDermott no matter what happens this weekend. I don't want to be accused of being a Monday morning quarterback on this. I would like them to move on, and I would like them to go after Jim Harbaugh. Don is in California. He's got a thought on that. Hello, Don. How are you?
Yes, Maggie, you're borderline genius.
I think full genius. Just go full genius, Don. It's cool. Don't hold back.
Well, let's see how it works out. Huh? No, I think Sean McDermott needs to be gone. I mean, his quarterback went to high school about 50 miles down the road from me, and he's been a superstar his whole life, basically, through JC, and he played at Wyoming, and which was good for cold weather training for Buffalo. But I think, looking at Jim Harbaugh's past, he coached at Stanford, did great, really improved the program, took over the Niners, really improved them a lot, got to the Super Bowl, lost his brother.
Yep.
And I think he might prefer San Diego because of the fair weather.
Yeah, L.A. But
and somebody could say, well, he coached at Michigan, it's cold there, but usually their season's over by December 1st before it really gets cold, but after Ohio State.
Don, but here's the thing, right? And I got to say, and thank you so much for the phone call, and I'll take the compliments wherever they come. But you think of all the people, especially coaches, doesn't Jim Harbaugh, aren't they supposed to be the most hard-nosed, iron sharpens iron kind of people? Like Jim Harbaugh is someone who likes shoveling snow. I don't think that weather is all of a sudden going to be a factor in his next destination. I mean, I feel like that saying something like that is something that gets you kicked out of the Harbaugh family permanently.
I don't know. Once you've lived in Palo Alto, and I think California is a
went
great
to
draw.
Ann Arbor. His parents still live there. They're like in their 80s. They didn't move to Florida. They're hanging out in Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Okay, well, it'd be really interesting if they did fire McDermott and Harbaugh had the choice between those two teams and obviously those two elite quarterbacks.
Yeah.
I still lean. I mean, would you take the Chargers? You're a Bills fan. Which way would you go?
I think you got to go with the Bills. First of all, Justin Herbert hasn't shown that he can one diddly squat. And Josh Allen at least has gotten you to one AFC championship game and should have been in another one. The 13 seconds game is not the offense's fault.
Right, but I'm asking you, Maggie Gray.
Yes.
With those rosters coming into next year and that quality of life, what would you do?
I would do Buffalo. Again,
get out of here. You want to move to Florida. You would do the warm weather of LA, and you know it.
You are the one who keeps telling me that the Chargers roster is something you cannot win with right now.
No, because they all get hurt. But Buffalo's roster is at a certain point, like they can't just keep paying all these old guys. At a certain point, don't they have to rebuild?
The only really old guy they paid was Von Miller, and that's an expensive mistake. Don't get me wrong. They made a mistake. It's expensive. He's going to be on their cap for for eternity, but I think the Bills roster is much better than the Chargers roster.
So Stephon Diggs is 30 and a malcontent and wants out.
Well, let's not make some leaps.
Look at
there. I don't know if he wants out.
Oh, I thought that was the scuttlebutt.
No, he's a malcontent, but he's never once said he wants out.
He's 30, and obviously, your safeties are 1,000 years old.
Listen, your left tackle just made the Pro Bowl. You have a quarterback. You finally have a run game.
I'm looking at some old names on this defense. Rasul Douglas, Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer, Leonard Floyd.
Floyd's a one-year deal, and he's played excellent this year, by the way. Yeah, Poyer, they didn't expect to have him back this year. Hyde, I get it.
So I'm just saying it doesn't necessarily seem like a no-brainer to me because at least, listen, the Chargers, I am making fun of them. I think they always get hurt, but you have a Bosa and you have a Rashawn Slater and you have a Herbert. So, yeah, I'm just going to say the weather. It matters, and you know it.
No.
You would never, we're
not recruiting here, these guys, unless you're recruiting free agents, I guess, but this is not part of it.
Let me ask you this. Forget Victor. Are the Bills as a roster ascending or descending?
I think it's kind of status. I think it's the same. That might be part of the problem.
Okay,
I think they've been kind of similar.
That'll work.
I mean, you're not as good. Were you better when Tre'Davious White was younger? Sure. Yes, you were. But what are you going to do? You have to make upgrades in the offseason, no doubt. I mean, they traded for Rasul Douglas from the Packers for a third-round pick. Now he's hurt and didn't practice yesterday, but you know where your deficiencies are.
Got it. Wait, is this team's strength defense or offense right now? I mean, could be McDermott's fault,
too.
I
think that in this 5-game winning streak that they had to go on to make the playoffs, I think the defense has really stepped up in a major way. But the offense has shown you some things, especially that game against the Cowboys, where they ran the ball, and Josh Allen really wasn't a factor.
This would be great. Oh, man, I would love it if they did fire Sean McDermott and Harbaugh was loose and he had this choice. That would be fascinating. Because I think everyone's with me. We're all weather people. That beautiful stadium.
Carlos is shaking his head.
Yeah, I'm not. If you're looking at this roster, I have my choice between Keenan Allen, who's 31, and Stephon Diggs. I'll go with Diggs.
Diggs is 30.
And he stays healthy.
He stays healthy. Allen's been banged up the last couple of seasons. We have no idea what's going to happen with Austin Eckler. I think he's gone.
Yeah.
So, no, I want Austin Eckler or I want James Cook. James Cook is ascending. He's a young, talented running back. I like the Bills' offense at least better than the Chargers' offense for sure.
Also,
the defense, Maggie said it, the defense has been stout the last month. I would take Buffalo's roster.
Get me as far away from Patrick Mahomes as humanly possible. I mean, you're in the AFC East where Belichick is now out. Tua is, I like Tua, but I think the jury's still out on whether or not he's a $200 million quarterback. And, let's see what happens with Aaron Rodgers. I don't know.
Well, here's the other thing.
And Aaron Rodgers, that's 1 year, maybe 2. I mean, that's not the long-term solution.
And Salah's probably on his way out next year, too. So you're going to have some coaching influxes there with the Jets.
Say you do fire McDermott. What if you fire McDermott and you don't get a Harbaugh?
Well, you have to – this is where you got to back channel a little bit, which is, I know, it would be a major violation of the Rooney Rule. I'm not advocating for something like that. I'm just talking about – in a wish list, there's no heir apparent to Sean McDermott. He doesn't have anybody in the building who it's like, all right, if I stay here forever and then this guy's going to take over for me. There's nobody there. So if I have my shot at Jim Harbaugh, who wants to get back to the NFL maybe, this is the time. You got to strike while the iron's hot.
What if it was a Dan Quinn? Say you did get Harbaugh and you had to go to, what are the other hot candidates? Would that still be an upgrade in your mind?
I don't know. I'm not sure about Dan Quinn, but I know for Harbaugh, I want someone on the offensive side of the ball.
Got it. So, is that why you hesitated at Belichick?
Yeah.
Okay.
The defense, that is not I mean, it has been a problem because there's been some real high-profile collapses by the defense in the postseason, and McDermott has to wear that. But it's winning with Josh Allen. Everything has to be maximizing the quarterback. So I think Jim Harbaugh would do that. 855-212-4CBS. We will get into Florida State and the suspension, I guess, coming down. The trouble that Florida State has gotten into with these NIL violations. Also, Dallas Cowboys, the latest on how this team is feeling going into the showdown against Green Bay. 855-212-4CBS. Maggie and Perloff.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. "45 seconds remaining. "30 seconds remaining. "15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Welcome back to Maggie and Perloff. You know, this is really going to could possibly be one of the most painful months of my life.
Why?
January 2024. No, even worse.
Oh.
The Philadelphia Eagles are slumping in a major, major way. And the Dallas Cowboys are having the entire NFC just lay at their feet with two possible easy games. Let me explain how. First of all, Green Bay is not ready. Their defense is terrible. They have not beaten anybody good. Not that Dallas has beaten that many good teams either. But Dallas has what I think is a relatively easy matchup this round. Then if the Rams beat the Lions, which is very possible, that's a close spread.
Yep.
Then the Cowboys get the winner of the Bucs-Eagles injured quarterback bowl. The Cowboys aren't going to play. They played no one most of the season. They're not going to play anyone until they go to San Francisco. It's almost like 2 bye weeks.
Okay, well, that's a lot of ifs in there. First of all, I agree that they should have the easier upper hand against the Packers. Packers are, I think, just cool that it's in the playoffs.
Their average age is 25 years old. They're the youngest team in 40 years.
Well, but sometimes that can make you dangerous. You don't know what you don't know. You're playing free. There's no pressure on you. Whereas the Cowboys have all the pressure in the world on them in this playoff run.
True.
So that's not nothing. But yes, the Cowboys are so good at home. Like, they should be able to do this easily. Here's my thing. You just said if the Rams beat the Lions, then the Dallas gets the winner of the Bucs-Eagles. If the Lions beat the Rams, which they're favored to do, you don't think that the Lions would come into Dallas with their hair on fire? The way they lost that game with the 2-point conversion getting nullified because of illegal touching, because the offensive lineman didn't report or did report and the referees messed it up. I mean, I can't even imagine a team that would have a bigger chip on their shoulder that would be just, they got embarrassed. They got embarrassed in that game. Like the Lions, I felt like they got embarrassed, and I think they want a second shot at Dallas. And that was a close game anyway, that Detroit-Dallas game.
I don't think Detroit's even going to make it there. I mean, first of all, the Rams are the hottest team in the league without question. They're 7-1 since their bye, with the one loss coming the last second against Baltimore. In overtime, actually, against Baltimore in the rain.
Special teams play, too.
Yeah, so they could have easily gone 8-0 in their last. And, come on, Sean McVay against Dan Campbell.
Okay.
That's a coaching mismatch because Sean McVay knows Jared Goff like the back of his hand. This is a perfect setup. And I think the Rams are the most dangerous team to the Niners in the second round as well. So I think the Rams are it. So I do think that the Cowboys are going to get an injured Bucs or an injured Eagles team.
It's a compelling case with McVay's institutional knowledge of Jared Goff. Yeah. But here's the thing. Like, the Lions have been winning with Jared Goff. If you look at the numbers, he's not playing that much differently than how he played with the Rams. So you know him well, good, but like, he's kind of been the same guy. It's not like he turned into somebody different. And, I think Goff just always, if he can not turn the ball over, he'll be fine.
Yeah, I mean, the Lions, I think in the second half of the season, been just okay. They were the hot team early,
That's
but
true.
they lost to Green Bay. They got killed by the Bears, and they lost that game to Dallas. They're okay. They're not shocking and awing anybody like they did kind of early in the season. We know their game plan at this point.
Well, the other part is if you trust Dan Campbell still, because he's making some decisions. And I'll go back to that Dallas Cowboys game. Like, you didn't get the 2-point conversion for whatever reason. I know it was in the moment extremely frustrating to get that called off, waved away. But you got to kick the extra point once you get moved back. Go for a 2-point conversion from the 7-yard line. Like, that's crazy. And he did it, and he said that's who we are and our identity. But I don't know if you trust Dan Campbell right now.
Well, I mean, yes, but do you trust Mike McCarthy, who threw the ball on third down the series before, giving the Lions all that time to run down the field?
So I've never trusted Mike McCarthy.
A bad game manager battle going on there. So Detroit, Dallas, we're getting ahead of ourselves because Detroit has a real challenge here because LA is playing amazing football. Dallas, I understand. The spread has come down from 7.5 to 7. Jordan Love looks great, but this is like, don't forget, their defense can't stop anybody.
Yeah.
We're doing our pick soon.
Yeah.
There are a lot of juicy over-unders.
Well, that's how we do picks around here.
Yeah.
One pick against the spread, one over/under, one player prop.
Yeah. I had to tell me, and you're on fire right now, so I need your advice.
Coming off a 3-0 week, guys.
How is Green Bay going to stop Dallas? I feel like Dallas
don't
is going
know.
to run all over them.
I don't have the answers. Maybe Andrew Bogusch does. He's here with
Yeah.
headlines.
Nope. Travis Kelce isn't a young guy. He's got an in for a roadie gig on the biggest music tour on the planet right now, but maybe it's the inhumane temperatures in KC tomorrow night that had people asking Kelce about retirement yesterday.
I have no reason to stop playing football, man. I love it. We still have success. Come in with the right mindset, and I just love the challenge that it gives me every single day to try and be at my best. And like I said, I have no desire to stop anytime soon.
Was this really a question? I saw this headline yesterday. I'm like, did we have to ask him this?
Well, he's 34.
Right.
And he's having the worst statistical season of his career, and he's dating the most high-profile person in America. I don't know.
Western Hemisphere.
World.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I kind of get it. But it's not like he's having a bad season. He played in 15 games. He's got 93 receptions for based on the doorstep of another 1,000-yard receiving season. But only 5 touchdowns.
But Gronk retired earlier than this. Gronk was 32, right?
Yeah, but Gronk's back's falling apart.
Yeah. Travis taken some big hits over the years. I get it. I understand why that was a question. By the way,
also, how much longer is he going to play? He's 34.
He's
The
34.
tight end.
But like ahead of a playoff game on a Thursday, not his season-ending press conference, like, hey, what's the future like for you?
Yeah.
You ask it now as if it's a thing now, and
Right.
there's nothing that would have led you to think that he was thinking about going
that's true.
home.
That's true.
Unless he said something on the podcast that I don't know about that led, like with him and his brother, that led to somebody in this forum asking it. But when I saw the headline yesterday, I thought
You feel like someone
this
was
is
fishing.
not even a question.
All right, he's got 2 weeks rest. If he is, and I think he could be a good cold ball. Like Mahomes is not going to look at anybody except Travis Kelce this game, right? He'll retire. If this is a crucial playoff game and it's 0 degrees and my receivers can't catch the ball when it's warm out, like there is only one man to be trusted on this field. So I don't care if he's on the brink of retirement. He is the best receiver on for the Chiefs by 50 miles.
You know, you started the show by saying this is your most fun game. Everything else has major flaws, and all you've done is list the flaws of this game since then.
Actually, Maggie said that people are going to tune in for the weather. I said the opposite. I think that on a normal neutral field, this would be the most fun game. Although I didn't even barely paid attention to that Germany game they played. Was it Germany?
They played in a neutral field.
But that was whatever. But I think this would have been a huge rating anyway. I think the cold's going to suck the fun out of this game a little bit. Obviously, right?
No, yes. I mean, that's the thing about these cold weather games. Like, it's this is why some people love them. It forces you to adjust. You don't have, now does Patrick Mahomes can't be the great Patrick Mahomes. Does he, have to be limited and figure things out? Like, some people like the chess match of that. I don't.
I like the snow. That's what I want. If you're going to give me bad weather, you're going to give me wind.
Suck too. I mean, they're fun to watch, but the actual play is awful.
Well, that's because your Bills lost a snow game last year.
They lose lots of snow games, but it's sloppy.
Beautiful. Oh, I love a good snow. If you're going to give bad weather, at least give me snow. Wind? You can't see wind on TV, Maggie. You can see the flags.
The Dolphins, by the way, had Jalen Waddle and Raheem Mostert at practice yesterday. Both of them have lower body injuries. They are both officially questionable for tomorrow night. Browns corner Denzel Ward in some doubt for tomorrow in Houston after hurting his knee in practice yesterday.
How does that happen this time of the year?
You make one wrong move. I mean, Jair Alexander stepped on a foot for the Packers, twisted his ankle on Wednesday, and he has an same kind of question mark now.
That kind of stuff as a fan makes me just out of my mind.
Is Jair Alexander healthy enough to come out for the coin toss?
He always is.
Yeah.
Whether he should be or out there or not.
He's supposed to or not?
For the first time since Game 4 of the 2018 NBA Finals, Kevin Durant's team beat LeBron's team last night.
Now KD steps in front of a pass from Reeves, gets the steal, goes the length of the floor and jams it home in transition. Durant with 14 on the night. The loudest two came right there. He's got the Suns up 23, 84-61, their biggest advantage.
Durant finishing with 18, 31 for Devin Booker, a season-high 37 for Bradley Beal. The Suns cruising to a 127-109 win in L.A. LeBron had just 10 points for the Lakers. The Thunder,
Sorry, did you see the celebrity situation?
I saw Emma Stone at this game.
Yeah, so apparently, according to like Barstool and some other people, that she gave like a very nice goodbye, like waved goodbye as the game was over and she was kind of exiting while the clock was still ticking down. said goodbye to Grayson Allen.
Oh.
It looks like you see Bradley Beal's like tracking her like as she's about to walk out and like looking for something, and Grayson Allen either says something to her and then she gives him a nice goodbye.
All right. Is that a rumor? Are we starting things?
I don't know.
Whispers?
The internet's starting things.
I think she has a husband.
She's 35. He's 28. Is she married?
I heard her on a podcast with her a kid. She definitely has a child.
She is married.
Yeah.
Grayson Allen got married last year, too.
To Emma Stone?
No, to a a Duke soccer player.
No, well, I guess this is all about nothing. Dave McCary is who she's, he founded the production company Fruit Tree.
Grayson Allen and Morgan Reed, his wife, look pretty tight. I don't see they don't seem like they're falling apart.
From this
either.
one picture, they seem unbreakable.
Gonna be honest, so does Emma Stone and Dave McCary. Maybe I should have Googled that before I brought it up on national radio. Back to you, Bogusch.
The
By the way,
Thunder.
I like it. I'm an Emma Stone fan. I don't think Grayson Allen's leaving this wife for Emma Stone. He's done just fine.
The Thunder shame the Blazers 139-77. 62 points is the fifth largest win in NBA history. The Bucks racing to a 37-point halftime lead on the Celtics. They won 135-102. Giannis had 24 points, 12 boards, and 6 assists. And the Mavs topped the Knicks 128-124. 44 from Kyrie, with Lucas sitting out with a sore ankle. And Adam Silver said yesterday the in-season tournament definitely sticking around, but with some tweaks. Owners met recently about those court designs, tie-breaking procedures, and naming the event. Maybe we name it in memory of E.J. Stewart, who is he okay? Like, where he's not here anymore, and
Who's
no
that?
one loves the IST more than E.J.
Wait. You know what it's going to end up being.
I thought it was called the NBA Cup already.
You got to put a corporate sponsor on this bad boy.
I thought you were going to say the LeBron Cup. Because Kobe gets the All-Star Game MVP. Give this the in-season tournament to LeBron.
I'm sure he'll be thrilled.
Men's number 10, Illinois, down to Michigan State last night, 71-68. Sparty now 1-4 in Big Ten play. Santa Clara knocked off number 23, Gonzaga, 77-76. And number 24, FAU escaped Tulane, 85-84 on 2 free throws with less than a second left. Women's number 1, South Carolina, an 81-57 win at Missouri, extending their regular season win streak to 65 games. Florida State football is the first program to be detached from its NIL collective as an NCAA punishment. Offensive coordinator Alex Atkins reportedly took a recruit during his official visit to meet with the head of that collective, and the player was then offered $15,000 a month to play for the Noles. Atkins gets a 3-game suspension. The program's on 2 years probation, and that booster can't be associated with them, the school, anymore. The Yankees and new outfielder Juan Soto avoiding arbitration with a record-setting $31 million agreement yesterday. The second largest sum was $20.5 million from Mets first baseman Pete Alonso. And finally, they're back.
Rebound near sideboard, Suzuki back, Matheson the shot, and Blackwood got a piece of it. Rebound near side, only 8 seconds left. Another shot, Matheson, blocked by Zetterlund, cleared by the Sharks. And it's all the way down. This game is over. A 12-game losing streak comes to an end in Montreal.
Say it loud, say it proud, Dan Rusanowski. Our Sharks are winners again. First time since mid-December. 3-2 in Montreal. Guys, back to you.
You know, one thing about the Florida State, why this isn't really a severe penalty, taking away their OC for the first 3 games, because it doesn't matter. Florida State's already proven. It doesn't matter if you win or lose those games. You're not getting anything out of it anyway. NCAA says, yeah, like, we don't like you. We hate you. Everyone in college.
Okay.
Florida State should burn the whole house down. Just burn it down. Bring that flaming spear and take it into Indianapolis and just burn the whole thing down.
Tell us how you really feel.
Don't say that. Some Yahoo out there will actually go do it. I have one reason why I think the NCAA was justified in calling out this particular instance.
Why is that?
I'll tell you next. 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227.
That's a tease.
Maggie and Perloff, CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. 4 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining.
Welcome back. Maggie Gray, Andrew Perloff, CBS Sports Radio. Massive weekend coming up, Super Wildcard weekend. And then this story kind of floated in, Perloff. out of nowhere, which is Florida State is now in some major trouble for NIL and recruiting violations. Offensive coordinator is going to be suspended. The team's now under sanctions. Just crazy. And what it's stemming from is the offensive coordinator allegedly drove a recruit to a collective meeting with the school's NIL collective, which is called Rising Spear. And during that meeting, according to the NCAA, and I'm reading this from Yahoo, the booster encouraged the prospect to enroll at Florida State and offered him an NIL opportunity with the collective worth approximately $15,000 per month during his first year of school. So I know the NIL is the Wild West right now, and I'm glad the players are able to make money off their name, image, and likeness. But this, to me, I get why you would penalize a team for doing it this way. It feels very coercive a little. Like, were the kids' parents there or anyone representing the student athlete? I don't know the answer to that. So if you have an offensive coordinator driving a recruit to meet with a collective where they're, encouraging him to sign this deal, you could say, Maggie, $15,000 a month is fine. What's the details? What's the fine print? You don't want a young person, a high school recruit, someone in high school signing something or agreeing to something when they don't have a representative, with them. This feels like it could be looked at in some lights as taking advantage of a young person, flashing a lot of money in front of them, and maybe getting them, I don't know, but maybe getting them to sign something that's not in their best interest.
I don't know. You sound like an old school college guy saying, oh, no NIL.
Oh, I didn't say no NIL.
I understand what you're saying, but listen, these high school recruits, they should have representation, regardless.
Okay, but I don't know if on this particular recruiting trip, do you have, let alone your parents or guardian or a lawyer or something, this is, I think, what a lot of people are worried about with NIL. Not giving players money, that's fine. I'm all for that. But making sure they don't get screwed. And I'm not saying that FSU was out to screw this guy, but you got to protect yourself. Now you're entering in a business.
Right.
You're ending in a business relationship with this collective.
Right. Which that player would then blow off the deal is the way it actually works and he goes somewhere else.
Well, sometimes then they try to claw the money. And do you want to go through that? That sounds
terrible... NIL's stupid. They should just pay the players. You're absolutely right about the whole structure there. That being said, you can't do this significant a suspension to Florida State because it's less like Michigan and sign stealing. Everybody does some version of this.
It's not right.
Yeah,
but if indeed that's how it went down, I don't think that's right.
The whole sport is an utter joke. Obviously, you watch the playoffs, the last 4 games. How many commercials were there? 75,000. The players should be taking a part of that. The whole structure is messed up, and that's why you have situations like this. But you cannot single out Florida State. Not now. Not after you screwed them like this. They should have issued a warning, unless they already have issued a warning. Yeah. So you can't do it this way. To put them on 2 years probation and suspend their offensive coordinator for 3 games. And they
got a show cause.
And they got a pretty good chance to be pretty good next year. I know Jordan Travis is gone, but my guy DJ U's taken over. I think this is way too heavy-handed. It does feel ironic that the two teams that the NCAA has gone after, Jim Harbaugh, who
just won a national title,
keeps speaking out against the NCAA, and Florida State, who keeps speaking out against the College Football Playoff Committee, but generally, college football in general. They hate the ACC.
Yeah.
They hate all the ADs around the country now. They're becoming a big pain in the butt for the NCAA. Well, not just the NCAA. They become a big pain in the butt for the whole sport because what the sport did to them was utterly embarrassing. They should have been in the Final Four.
Okay, you're totally right about that, but completely separate issue from what's going on here. It's all about these vendettas.
It is. It's college football. Of course it is.
Listen. I'm not
Jim Harbaugh had played ball in his press conferences, they never would have attacked him like this.
You sound like Aaron Rodgers' conspiracy theory here, just less dangerous. I think that I can't go there with you. I get why FSU wants to get revenge. They want to get out of the ACC. They want to go to the SEC, I'm assuming. They see the writing on the wall where this is going with the Big Ten and the SEC as the two behemoth conferences. We'll see what happens with the Big 12. But this, to me, is a separate issue. This does feel wrong to me that you would have a young person who's being sort of strong-armed, which is how they paint it, to sign with Florida State, granted, and get money, but we have no idea what the terms of the deal were. And I don't love that. So yes, Florida State, get your pound of flesh, but this does feel like it should be against the rules. Now, the big thing is you're going to need Congress to come in and do this NIL legislation, right?
Which did they just do that last week? What?
But where's the uniform?
Oh, I thought
rules?
that all happened, and we just ignored it because everyone thinks NIL is boring. Somebody just passed a new NIL rule.
You're going to have to tell me the details of this, Perloff. You can't just bring it up. I mean,
well, it was a big headline. I remember we were on a production call. I said, they just passed a huge new NIL rule. And we said, yeah, but nobody really wants to hear the details of NIL because it'll put you to sleep. I said that. And that's me and Dan Patrick used to talk about that all the time. Nobody wants to hear the details of NIL and college football structure. But there is a new Division I Council approves NFL disclosure and transparency rules. So that's part of this too. The NCAA basically has a whole new set of guidelines for NIL, so the deals are up front.
Okay, but that's great. But are they also figuring out who's going to pay who? Like, I think that the coaches don't like this collective system, right? That's part of it. So nothing about that is changing, if I'm reading you correctly.
The NCAA was concerned about what you're saying. The NCAA approves new NIL rules to help athletes protect themselves. This is from January 10th. The NCAA Division I Council voted Wednesday to adopt new rules, basically so everybody can look at the deals so you can't screw a kid. I think that's what they're saying.
That's fine. That's great. It should do it, but that doesn't answer, like, the NIL is still state by state. There's no federal NIL about how these deals get done and what you can give and all of that. There's still a lot more to get ironed out here.
And not sound like Aaron Rodgers, but you're right. The federal government will do a great job of making this all work smoothly because that's what the federal government does.
Do you have a better option? You're going to get who's more dysfunctional, the NCAA or the federal government? Don't answer that.
I think honestly,
it's a tie.
Honestly, players need to unionize and they need to get a new contract. And they need to pay players.
I know, but you act like that's hop, skip, and a jump easy. Also,
well, NIL was hop, skip, and a jump. It happened 2 years. The courts just demolished the NCAA, and they had no choice. I think that's where we're headed.
Okay, but the players already tried to unionize several years ago.
Yeah, it's a totally different temperature now. I think they would do much better. And, Maurice Claret tried to sue to get in early. Like, there's all sorts of things. And Sonia Sotomayor shot him down, actually. It was interesting. She heard that case. The legal temperature is so against the powers that be in college football. The players can do anything they want right now, and they will. It's changing so fast. That's why this penalty seems funny, because you're busting Florida State for NIL. All right, but back to that, no conspiracy theory. Do you honestly think Jim Harbaugh's attitude does not add to the suspensions he's gotten? He is so outspoken that I think if he just played ball a little bit, was a little bit nicer to people, I think the NCAA would not go after him as hard as they do.
Okay, well, the NCAA, he served that 3-game suspension, right? Like, proactively.
Right. And he's the second one. I mean,
the sign stealing was the Big Ten. So the NCAA hasn't come down on they haven't made their decision.
Same dynamic, though. Everybody hated, Jim Harbaugh is not well liked by other coaches in the Big Ten, so they wanted a pound of flesh. That's how I view, but we view sign stealing differently. But I generally think if you're a school that plays ball with the NCAA, they're going to turn the other way.
The evidence against Harbaugh with the sign stealing scandal was like so mountainous, so preposterous that it was like if the Big Ten had ignored it just because like Michigan plays ball with them, quote unquote, it would have looked completely hypocritical. It was just too big of a scandal.
Well, I mean, if Harbaugh actually played ball, he wouldn't openly cheat all the time.
He does not. And this is the person I want to coach my NFL team.
By the way, Harbaugh hates NCAA rules, and he'll tell you about it. So, makes sense to me.
855-212-4CBS. Coming up, who has the most to gain this weekend?
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's destined to get knocked out by Jake Paul. She's destined to film it. They are Maggie and Perloff on CBS Sports Radio.
Who has the most to gain during Super Wildcard Weekend? Hey, welcome to the show. Maggie Gray, Andrew Perloff. Plenty about Bill Belichick and Nick Saban as their news is still reverberating through sports. Of course, Belichick parting ways with the Patriots. Saban is retiring. Those two jobs. New England and Alabama both need to be filled. These are all big stories, but we look ahead to Super Wildcard Weekend, Perloff, and there's a lot of players and coaches who could stand to gain a lot in the next 2 days.
Yeah, I mean, I think the high-profile game, because of the history and the fact that Cowboys-Packers, can you imagine? Jordan Love, people have started to notice this last month, but if Jordan Love wins this game in Dallas, he's there already. He's at star status. And even if they lost the following round, I think coming into next year, he would be the guy. We love the next guy, and I think Jordan Love is shaping up to be the next guy following in Aaron Rodgers' footsteps. A win in Dallas, he would all of a sudden, just like that, become the hottest guy in the entire NFL. There are other young quarterbacks who, I mean, C.J. Stroud's been great, but if he beats Cleveland, it's nothing like Jordan Love beating the Cowboys.
Also, C.J. Stroud's a rookie, so this all feels like found money, for them. It's like, wow, Houston, look at that. You've got something cooking here, and it looks like C.J. Stroud's the real deal. But rookies go into the playoffs, the bar's so low anyway.
Yeah.
I agree with you about Jordan Love. It feels sometimes like it's his rookie year. It's not. He's been in the league for 3 years already. And so this would be unbelievable for him, right? To win in Dallas, you're right. I got someone else for you, though. And it is another youngish quarterback, but he's been around now for a while. Can you imagine if Tua goes into Kansas City and beats the Chiefs in a game that's supposed to be 30 degrees below zero? Now, just coming out of my mouth, I'm like, man, that's going to be hard. But if Tua and the Dolphins pull off this upset, I think Tua's the one guy who is really on the cusp here of which way is his career going to go. He stayed healthy, which was the number one thing you wanted to see from him. But does anyone believe he's like a $200 million quarterback? I don't know how many people are there with Tua in this massive contract. So winning this game in Kansas City, proving you can play in the cold weather, so many things are at stake.
But if they're going to win, that means that Tua is going to hand the ball off to hopefully Mostert and Achane every time. He's not going to do – there's no way they can win. So you're saying, okay, I got to be honest. If Tua wins this game, I don't understand how the spread is still 4.5. I would be so shocked that I can't even wrap my head around this. Little Tua from Hawaii going into minus 30-degree wind chill in Kansas City. I can't understand how he could do this. You're probably right because my brain's not computing it.
Well, listen, it's a 4-point spread, 4.5. I mean, that's not
Yeah, I know.
big.
I know. And I don't
for the
understand
reigning
it.
Super Bowl champs.
We had an interesting discussion. Does the cold weather make this a closer game or a further game? I think for Buffalo-Pittsburgh, so to get a little off topic, Buffalo-Pittsburgh feels like the cold weathers make the teams more even because the wind's taking them out of this. But I feel like Miami and Kansas City on a neutral field, I would love Tua's chances in this game. So it's really, you're saying it's really about him defying the weather.
Yeah, I think it's about him defying the weather. I mean, you're always dealing with this when you're the Miami Dolphins because your record has been terrible in cold weather and you're always going to be fighting against that. Just your reputation is that you can't play in cold weather. To go in and play what we think might be, what'd you say, the third coldest?
Yeah, I mean, only the famous Ice Bowl, Packers and Cowboys, and then the famous 81 AFC title game, Bengals and Chargers. This is third.
That's crazy. And if Tua was able to win, and even if he's handing the ball off, which would be smart. I mean, even if you're just handing the ball off, if you're not throwing interceptions, like you're the quarterback, you're going to get a lot of credit here, even if you're not necessarily the one leading the charge. And then you go on from there. And, if the Bills win, you could be playing, I believe you would play Buffalo next. I got to double check that. But it would be something for Tua. It'd be pretty wild. And again, he's right there where the organization has to make a decision on what kind of contract they're going to offer him.
That'd be a huge win for him. That's funny, too. I'm looking at, if you want to lean on Achane and Mostert in the running game.
Yeah.
Isn't Mostert, I was thinking about him, like Mostert feels like isn't he a surfer off the coast of Florida? He's from Florida. Achane is from, of course, deep Texas. Yeah. They don't feel like cold weather guys either. Everything, maybe it's the aqua uniforms, the dolphin blue uniforms. I just cannot wrap my head around them playing well in this cold weather. Now they did. What was the playoff game last year where Skylar Thompson was a Dolphin starter and they played
wild card round?
How cold was it? That's what I was trying to remember.
It was not like historic. Nothing like that. I don't think it was even that bad. It's just the game was at night.
Yeah, but they fared well, okay? The weather didn't kill them in that game. So maybe this team is a little tougher than we think.
I'm sorry, the Dolphins are the 6th seed. So if they win this game, then they would face the Ravens, right? Because they'd be the lowest seed remaining.
Well, unless the
Steelers win.
Right.
They're right about that. Let's dive more into the weather as we're talking about who's got the most to gain this weekend. 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. Because let's tell you exactly what we're talking about in case you haven't been paying attention here, and I would totally understand why, because everyone's got their own life. Minus 30 degree with wind chill is what's expected for Kansas City. Supposed to be about 3 degrees at kickoff. And then in Buffalo, they're looking at what they're calling a weather event. So 7 inches of snow is possible because it's a regular day that ends in Y in Buffalo, New York. But 50-mile-an-hour wind gusts is what could be on the menu for that 1 o'clock Eastern start. You talk about an equalizer. You completely neutralize both quarterbacks' arms when you have a 50-mile-an-hour wind. You completely take out the kicking game. How could you wouldn't even attempt to point after if you have a 50-mile-an-hour wind. It'd be silly. So I think that the 10-point spread, or I think it actually came down to about 9 between Buffalo and Pittsburgh. This is shaping up really well for Pittsburgh because the one thing that Pittsburgh has been able to do consistently through all the ups and downs of this season, they've been able to run the ball. When they have a commitment to the run, they've been able to run. And I think the Bills might be missing a starting linebacker. This could be a real place where Pittsburgh could find an advantage.
But last week they played in a snow game against Baltimore. They had 6 fumbles. Jalen Warren could not, and this is going to be a similar issue.
That was rain, though.
That was rain/snow, right? It was ugly.
Wintry mix, yeah.
But I feel like Jalen Warren did not exactly show toughness in that situation for the Steelers. I mean, you hold on to the ball when your season's on the line. I'm not sure. And Najee Harris, if you know the Steelers are going to run, I feel like the Bills can stack the box against here. I'm sorry, the Steelers do not scare me. They're my Super Bowl team. And that, to me, if they win, it'd be by so far and away the biggest shock of the weekend. To go to Buffalo...
I'm telling you, with 50-mile-an-hour winds, I think it becomes more of a coin toss game.
Yeah, but it's by far the biggest spread. I mean, if we come in here and Pittsburgh won on Monday, I think NFL Nation would be totally surprised.
855-212-4CBS. Ramon is in Indianapolis, wants to talk about the weather.
Yeah, Happy New Year. I hadn't talked to you guys in a while. Appreciate that. I love hearing this, being a native area from the Chicago area. That's what we lived for. Those Southern teams never could come to Chicago and win until the last few years under these organizations we had. But it's a great thing. I want to see it happen. I just was debating with my brother. He figured, well, everybody can play in cold, and you're right. The information shows that under 40 degrees, especially dome teams, they never have a problem. I've lived in Indianapolis for a while, and Peyton Manning struggled in the cold, from watching him when he was up in New England and struggled up there. And plus, is Tua just getting treated bad because Justin Herbert got his money, and he can't make the playoffs one time and look real bad this year and kind of regressed. And I bet you that Trevor Lawrence is probably going to get his too, and he regressed. So let's give Tua a little bit more love. Thanks for taking my call.
Ramon, thank you so much. I mean, I think you're right I think Tua probably would have gotten paid if not for all the injuries last year, the concussions. Like Justin Herbert and Tua, same draft class, same with Joe Burrow. He got paid. Herbert got paid. I think he's right that Trevor Lawrence is going to get paid. I think it was just about Tua staying healthy, and he's done that.
Yeah, it's a big if, though. I mean, he did but last year was one of the ugliest series of injuries we've ever seen. When he went into the fencer's pose on the concussion, the size is a big deal. It just doesn't feel like Justin Herbert and Tua are same to me. If he did sign for $200 million, I'd understand the logic, but just my eyeballing it, he doesn't feel like a $200 million quarterback. Am I off here?
855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. I mean, you've really hitched your wagon to Tua, though, if you're Miami. Unless this is all BS and all the positivity around Tua. I mean, he had a fantastic season in terms of stats.
Yeah.
Like he was incredible. So I think he is getting that money. And winning in Kansas City, bump it up by an extra, 25, 30 mil.
Yeah, I mean, it stinks for the Dolphins. There's no middle class. you have no choice but to make everybody the highest paid quarterback.
Welcome to the NFL.
You know, by the way, if he's healthy, he's really good. Actually, last week against the Bills, I thought the receivers dropped 2 passes all over the place. He barely misses if you give him any time.
Coming up next, we're going to dive deeper into Bill Belichick. Where is he headed? A man who knows him very well wrote the book about Bill Belichick. Ian O'Connor is award-winning author. He joins us next to talk about all things Bill. Don't move. Maggie and Perloff, CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. 30 seconds remaining. Seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Welcome back to Maggie and Perloff. What a week, Maggie. I feel like we're still dealing with the tremors of Nick Saban, Pete Carroll, and Bill Belichick leaving. It's hard to wrap your head around that these guys will not be in the same place next year.
Crazy, and especially because as far as Bill Belichick and Pete Carroll, they still want to coach. Like
yeah.
They want to continue. When it comes to Belichick, what happened in his future, we welcome in Ian O'Connor. He's an award-winning journalist, of course, but also wrote the book, Belichick, The Making of the Greatest Football Coach of All Time. And Ian, thank you so much for the time this morning. How are you?
Good. For having me, Maggie and Andrew.
Appreciate it. So I saw you tweet this yesterday. The Patriots will regret firing Bill Belichick. Why do you think they'll regret this move?
Well, actually, that was a little bit of a spoof of myself since I wrote a column back in 2000 saying that the Patriots would regret hiring Belichick after he walked out on the Jets the way he did after 24 hours as head coach. So I've been haunted by that and reminded of that for the last 20 years. So I was just having a little fun there at my expense. But I wouldn't be surprised if Bill is successful somewhere else. He's still a very good coach. He just is not a very good personnel guy. And I think as long as he allows his new employer to put a general manager in place, I suspect that he'll be back in the playoffs and maybe giving himself a chance to win another Super Bowl. But I think the one thing that is critical here is basically he has to go, to me, where there is already a franchise quarterback in place, or at least a quarterback who has the potential to be a franchise player. And I think he needs to be very careful about which team and which organization he chooses in that context.
So, for example, if you had a choice between the Chargers and the Falcons, you would strongly recommend the Chargers?
I would. I know the Falcons. The one thing the Falcons gives him is a fairly manageable road back to the playoffs. Remember, for most of his career in the AFC East, and I talked to a lot of head coaches in the NFL who often complained about this, is that Bill was getting a bye into the tournament almost every year. And I think the NFC South, if you look at it, he might see it the same way. And maybe not to that extreme, but close enough. So, okay, we can draft a quarterback with the 8th pick, and Desmond Ridder might not be my guy, but I can get my guy in there pretty quickly, develop that player. But if I'm Arthur Blank, or any owner really, I want to know, who is your offensive coordinator? Is Josh McDaniels coming with you? Because it seems to me that just as much as Parcells needed Belichick by his side to win a couple of Super Bowls, I think Belichick really needs McDaniels or someone of that quality to be his offensive coordinator.
Ian O'Connor is joining us, wrote a book about Bill Belichick called Belichick, The Making of the Greatest Football Coach of All Time. He's an award-winning journalist. So how many suitors do you think will really be after Bill? You just mentioned it'd be better, in your opinion, for him to go someplace with an established quarterback. Those jobs don't open that often. Do you think there's going to be like a clamoring for Bill, or is it going to be one or two teams?
I think clamoring, Maggie, is probably a little strong. I think 2 to 3 teams very interested. Maybe a couple of teams will kick the tires on it, not thinking they really have a chance at him, or want to really just overdo or just have a complete overhaul of their organization to fit Bill into their structure. So I think it'll be very serious with him. And listen, he could still coach. I think there's no question about that. If you look at, and I understand that people often say this about losing teams and losing coaches, but they were playing hard for him at the end of the season. For the most part, his defense, he can still coach defense. Offensively is a problem. And I think the league offensively has passed him by to some extent. And that's why he needs help on that side of the ball. And as long as he has that, I think he'll do fine wherever he goes.
Ian, what is it that makes Bill Belichick the greatest coach or one of the greatest coaches of all time. Like, what does he bring to a team? Is it X's and O's? Is it culture? Is it all of that?
Yeah, I think it's all of that. I think his attention to detail and the way he practiced situational football was better than anyone else in the league. And I think he brought a military ethos from the Naval Academy, growing up around that academy, seeing his father coach there for many years. I think that was part of it as well, as the way he coached Tom Brady, arguably the greatest.
Ian, his Zoom froze. Maybe we should do this. Why don't we just grab Ian on the phone? Maybe you can call back, try to do the Zoom because the YouTube and Twitch audience, but maybe best off just on the phone. We'll get that back up.
Yeah, that's so funny. I'm curious to hear what Ian was going to say. Coaching Tom Brady made Bill Belichick a greatest coach because everyone says, oh, he had Brady. But that's interesting. To me, I think one of the keys was that Brady said, all right, go ahead, coach me as hard as you want. Then all the other players were like, well, he's yelling at Brady. He can yell at anybody.
I think Brady, the ultimate chip on the shoulder guy, right? The pick 199, had to fight for his job at Michigan, pick 199, never felt comfortable. And I've heard some players say this about Belichick, like he always had everyone really uncomfortable.
Yep.
And I get that. I think when
even Tom Brady.
Right, even Tom.
Yeah.
And especially Tom. And I think Tom Brady, to his credit, thrived in that kind of atmosphere. Like I think Belichick got the best out of him by touching those right buttons and pushing him.
I think the great quarterbacks the great players want to get coached, so that worked out very well.
855-2124-CBS. All right, we're going to get Ian our number. Andrew Bogusch is here. He's got some headlines as we're going to spin some plates here.
Guys, my favorite part of this is it might have been completely unnecessary.
I want to be here in Eugene for as long as Eugene will have me. This place has everything that I could possibly ever want. There's a little bit of a problem in society today with people looking for what's next and where there's an opportunity. And the reality is, the grass is not always greener. In fact, the grass is damn green in Eugene.
Maybe it is, but do we know if Dan Lanning's love letter to Oregon yesterday was really needed? Like, did Alabama actually offer him the job, or could I make this same video going, I'm good here, this grass is fine, I don't want to be Alabama's head coach either?
Well, now he set the bar, because if you are anyone linked to the Alabama job at all, you got to put a video out if you're going to stay, because Lanning did it, so now you've got to do it.
Except I think the other coaches actually do want to go to Alabama. Kalen DeBoer is not putting out any video till he gets that offer.
That is true. Dan Lanning also smoking a cigar at the end of the video. It was a pretty cool looking video. All right, Bogusch, stand by just for 1 second if you don't mind. We've got Ian O'Connor back on the phone. He's the author of Belichick, the Making of the Greatest Football Coach of All Time. We were talking about, Ian, what separates Bill and what really makes him, in your opinion, the greatest coach of all time?
Yeah, I think the attention to detail was off the charts. I think he practiced situational football more than any coach in the league. I think the way he coached Tom Brady was huge in how it impacted the rest of that roster, because he coached Brady as if he were a middle-of-the-roster player. And I have a scene in my book where Randy Moss and Dante Stallworth are at their very first meeting as Patriots at the beginning of the 2007 season, and Belichick is absolutely teeing off on Brady for mistakes he made in the 2006 AFC Championship game against the Colts, just reaming him out in front of the entire team with video. And Moss and Stallworth look at each other like, oh, my God, he's coaching Tom Brady like this. What's he going to do to us? So that really was a consistent theme throughout my research and talking to so many players over the years, is the way he coached Brady and how that impacted them. And they realized there were no sacred cows on the roster. And that was a fairly big part of their success, that Brady was willing to accept his coaching like that for the better part of 20 years.
Ian, it almost seems like Brady should be the one who gets the credit for that. And, when the dynasties end, you always have people fighting for credit. How much do you think Brady's Super Bowl in Tampa motivates Bill Belichick to have a great second act?
Oh, I think, no question, Maggie, that's a motivator here. And that's why I think he needs to make sure his quarterback is in place when he goes to that next organization. I just think that's so critical for him, just given what he went through after Brady in New England. But there's no question. It's not something he's ever going to admit for public consumption. But the fact that Brady won one without him, boy, he would really love to do the same thing without without Brady, no question about it. But I do think you can't separate that partnership when you're doling out credit. Belichick built that entire system around Brady, and he was smart enough to draft him. People forget that. People think it was just luck. No, they did look at Brady. They examined him. Dick Rabine with the Patriots was really high on Brady, and Belichick ultimately listened to him and drafted him, and he deserves credit for that and for developing a guy who could barely get on the field for most of his career at Michigan into the greatest quarterback and maybe player of all time, and also deserves credit for keeping that relationship together for 20 years. So I know we focused a lot on the divorce, and I'm as guilty as that as anyone, but I think the fact that they stayed together at that level for so long, Belichick deserves some credit for that as well.
Ian, do you think the criticism, though, of Belichick that we've heard lately is fair when people go back over his record as a Cleveland Browns head coach and his record without Tom Brady and just how stark different it is? Do you think it's fair to criticize Belichick because those numbers are so lopsided?
Yeah, sure, it's fair. I think you should also remember that he went 11-5 with Vinny Testaverde in Cleveland, beat Parcells in the playoffs. The one good year he had there. He also went 11-5 with Matt Castle. He had a winning record one year with Mac Jones. So I think there are some areas there you can look at and say, okay, he did have some success with other quarterbacks, but if John Wooden didn't have Lou Alcindor and Bill Walton, if Phil Jackson didn't have Michael Jordan and Shaq and Kobe and Pippen, the one year Phil Jackson always beat the Knicks in the playoffs. The one year he didn't have Michael Jordan, guess what? The Knicks beat him in the playoffs. It's just the way it is. Great coaches need great players to bring out their own greatness. And I think to really knock Belichick because he had Tom Brady for all of his championships is really missing the point because of the things I mentioned earlier. He drafted him. He developed him. He kept him there for 20 years. He built the system around him. And for those reasons, despite his record without Brady, I still think he's the greatest NFL coach of all time.
Ian, real quick, we're up against a break in a moment, but I have a question. Why does Bill Belichick want to keep going where his buddy Nick Saban is retiring? What's motivating Bill right now?
Good question, Andrew. I don't think he has many hobbies in his life. I think he's got golf. He's on Nantucket in his boat a little bit, but outside of that, he knows he was put on this planet to coach football and to win football games. And he once said he'll never be Marv Levy and coach into his 70s, but here we are, he's about to turn 72. And I think he just realizes this is his life's mission, and he's healthy, he's youthful, so he'll continue on.
Ian O'Connor's author of Belichick, The Making of the Greatest Football Coach of All Time. Ian, thank you so much for the time. You're currently writing a book about Aaron Rodgers' his first season in New York. Wow, do you have a lot of material. Probably not what you thought, though.
Yeah, and a lot of material I didn't really want to get into at the end of the book, but unfortunately, that's where I'm at.
This is all going to end with Ian O'Connor somehow infiltrating QAnon. Anyway, Ian, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right, thanks, guys. Take care.
Yes, you set out to write a book about Aaron Rodgers' his first season in New York. 4 snaps in, he tears his Achilles, and then ...
Right. You gave the treatment for the book to your publishers, like, this is going to be the book, and this is not going to look like the preseason treatment at all.
Andrew Bogusch, headlines. Giddy up.
Part 2.
Yeah.
By the way, the last reports out of Tuscaloosa say Kalen DeBoer from Washington and Mike Norvell from FSU might be the leading candidates to replace Nick Saban there. The Eagles, they've been tired. Now they're hurt too. Jalen Hurts dislocating a finger in their latest dud, Sunday's loss at the Giants. He says it was a mistake to go back into that game after the injury, but things are progressing well towards Monday night in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, just going out there and giving my best and doing my best. I told you it was a day-by-day thing. And, getting the preparation in this week, doing everything that I can to lead the guys.
Eagles wideout A.J. Brown still dealing with that knee injury, but Devontae Smith expects to play after missing Week 18 with an ankle trouble, and corner Darius Slay should be back from mid-December knee surgery. Packers corner Jair Alexander is questionable, but expected to play Sunday in Dallas after twisting his ankle in practice on Wednesday. Bucks Celtics was fun for a few minutes last night.
Lillard going to fire up another 3, and he drills it from straight on. Dame with his third 3-ball of the night. And there is a timeout from Boston. Right now, Joe Mazzulla is trying to figure out a way to stop the buzzsaw from continuing to churn toward his team.
Dave Kane on Bucks Radio. Mazzulla never figured it out. His team was down 37 at halftime. They lost 135-102. Not only did TNT switch off this game, but it was so out of hand that we got an appearance from Thanasis. Giannis's brother getting a roster spot might be the only sports scam bigger than Pete's unlimited vacation days.
Relax, pal. Hey, listen, if you make the schedule, you get unlimited vacation.
And I guess if you're Giannis, you pick roster spots, and Thanasis gets to chill in a Bucks uniform.
You know the team that drafted Thanasis? That'd be your New York Knicks.
They're not my New York Knicks.
Kidding. It's good to be the brother of the most important athlete in the city.
Yeah, it's really good.
Franchise besides Kareem.
My brother, my parents, everybody let me down. There was no nepotism in my family.
You got nothing?
I got nothing.
Yeah, me neither. People ask me sometimes, like, am I related to Jim Gray? I'm like, man, I wish I was. This thing would have been way easier. I've been like, Jim Gray interviewing, Pete Rose, and I'm in the background. I would have loved that.
You'd be allowed an MSG probably if Jim was your dad.
Maybe. Probably be sitting courtside. I'd be taking foul shots for them. No, I'm not related to Jim Gray, but I wish I was simply for the nepotism.
The Yankees and new outfielder Juan Soto avoided arbitration yesterday with a $31 million agreement for the coming season. That is the largest arbitration-avoiding deal ever, $1 million more than Shohei got for the Angels last season. For the first time since January 20th of 2011, Santa Clara has beaten Gonzaga, the Broncos sneaking past the 23rd-ranked Zag 77-76 on a hoop with 4 seconds left. Number 24, FAU, used 2 free throws with less than a second left to win at Tulane 85-84. Guys? Back to you.
Andrew Bogusch, thank you so much. We go right into our next guest, who won a national championship as the offensive coordinator for Alabama, coached obviously under Nick Saban, which is just one of the reasons why we wanted to talk with him this morning, and that is Mike Locksley, who is the head coach of the Maryland Terrapins. Coach, thanks so much for getting up for us this morning. How are you?
No problem, Maggie. I've been up actually on the road recruiting. So
What am I talking
for a while.
Yeah, I'm talking to a head football coach. You guys don't sleep. We know that. First off, Coach, were you surprised by Saban's retirement?
Definitely. Like most of us, I stay in pretty close contact with Coach, and actually spoke with him the day before he retired, and really caught me off guard because I know he was working hard the day before and had called me on some personal matters in terms of hirings and stuff through the coalition that he's on the board with. And to see that happen the next day really was surprising.
Coach, what do you think? Do you think something changed at the last minute? It was an impetuous decision, or do you think he just didn't tell you?
No, I mean, anybody that knows Coach knows that, he puts a lot of thought into any decision he makes. That's one of those ones when, you do make it, you keep it pretty close to the vest, and I think that's what he was able to do, and he went out the way he chose to go out.
Mike Locksley is joining us. He's the head football coach, of the Maryland Terrapins. He's a former Nick Saban assistant coach, getting a little of what it's like to coach under Nick Saban. You guys won a national championship together in 2017. I got to assume there's got to be a former Bama assistant text thread or something, Coach. I mean, what's been the talk amongst all the high-profile former Bama assistants over the last 24 hours?
Yeah, it's a pretty close-knit fraternity because, when you had opportunity to work for him, for Coach there at Alabama, you go through a lot together. And we definitely communicated. It caught us all off guard. No one could have said, hey, I knew it was coming. But that is so typical of Coach because, he has it all planned out. He does it the way he thinks is best to help, whether it's moving the program forward. Don't know what went into the decision other than I respect it. And, now he can get his flowers.
Coach, I was looking at some of the sort of coaching staffs when you were in Alabama from 2016 to 2018. How many head coaches were you in that building with? It's incredible what Coach Saban did. You were sitting around talking to future NFL coaches and tons of college coaches. Do you look back at that staff and just in awe of how much talent was in the room?
The 3 years I spent, under Coach and the different coaches that were on our staffs, and, obviously it's been well talked about the amount of turnover that he has because people want to hire guys that come out of a successful program like Bama. But to see him be able to continue to bring in that type of talent as a coach is very similar to what you see he's done as players. And, he finds a way to help players and coaches create value for themselves. And I know he did that for me.
Mike Locksley is joining us. He's the head football coach of the Maryland Terrapins. He's a former Nick Saban assistant, won a national championship as the offensive coordinator in 2017. What do you think, Coach, was Coach Saban's finest moment that you got to witness as him as the head coach and you as his offensive coordinator?
Obviously for me, it would go back to the 2017 season, the second and 26th national championship game against Georgia. To me, it kind of sums up the career of Coach. He makes a tough decision at halftime to bench a guy that's 26-2. He puts a freshman in there that goes in and executes enough to win a national championship as a true freshman. To me, that kind of summarized for me the time I spent with him. That would have been probably one of the moments that I think stands out for me.
Do you remember what the conversation was like? Can you give us a little, of what that moment was like when Saban said, Jalen Hurts, take a seat, Tua, you're in for the national title, everything on the line?
Yeah, again, no one is surprised by these types of decisions. He's one of the few people that has the ability and the balls to make a decision like that. It's not like it was his first time. You think back to the year prior to the 2016 Natty, where he named Steve Sarkisian the offensive coordinator before that game. Not surprised by those types of decisions. And if you're in the room with him, you know that he's always planning and thinking ahead.
Coach Saban in an interview said that the sport has changed and the schedule was grinding him down. When you look at your job now compared to what it was with 5 years ago with the transfer portal and NIL, is everything more difficult?
There's no doubt that things are more difficult. It's the landscape, but, one of the things that I learned being under coach is you better adjust or get left behind. And, all of us go through it. All of us have dealt with the new landscape. I think because of the time I spent at Bama, a lot of us that have spent time there are probably a little more well-versed and equipped to handle it because we were trained under the greatest coach in college football to always have a plan. And I think like everybody else, it definitely has changed. It's definitely more difficult. But you know what? So what now what?
Yeah, Mike Locksley, the head football coach, Maryland Terrapins, joining us just for another moment, Coach. I mean, you talk about big shoes to fill. I mean, there might be none bigger. And for the next head coach at Alabama, this is going to be a unique opportunity. Do you think, would it be better to go outside the program in some ways? Or do you believe that Saban, who is said he's going to have a hand in picking the next coach, do you think it makes more sense to try to bring in someone who has institutional knowledge of the program?
That's tough for me to say. I'm sitting here as the head coach of Maryland, and I think it's probably not up to me to make decisions like that or to comment on that type of thing. But I would say this, Greg Byrne and the people there at Alabama, the supporters and the powers that be there, are really smart people. I think they know, and having seen what he's been able to do over the last 18 years there, the consistency of the program, I don't think you need to reinvent the wheel. So I don't necessarily think you can't go outside. It's just a matter of whoever they do decide to hire, embracing the standard, the culture that's kind of in place, and then putting your personality on it.
Coach, can I ask you one other question outside of Saban? And thank you again for the time this morning. I know you're very busy. You are from Washington, D.C. proper, right? And you have made your career mostly around that area. Caleb Williams is from the D.C. area. I got to believe he's one of the best football players to come out of that area in quite a long time. Can you give us, did you scout Caleb Williams? Can you give us any kind of institutional knowledge about what this young man is like?
Of course, I scouted Caleb Williams. Unfortunately, I was coming into Maryland at a time when he was leaving high school where I was selling a vision of what I wanted Maryland to become. And, where he was, obviously Maryland didn't fit because he was looking to be in a program that would give him a chance to compete for championships and platform that allowed him to put himself in a position he's done. And, again, I know his dad, Carl, very well. I know Caleb very well. They both, the plan that they had for him seems like it's coming to fruition. There's no doubt a talented quarterback. There's no doubt, as a ninth grader, he won the league championship on a Hail Mary, The kid has won throughout every level of his life, from youth football all the way up, and been successful. So, not surprising.
Coach, I got to tell you, I went to GW, which did not have any football. My best friend went to Maryland. I've gone to so many Maryland Terrapins football games. It is an incredible atmosphere. It is such a special place, Maryland. And, congratulations on the success you've had, and wish you future success there, because it is a very unique spot, and it is awesome.
Appreciate it, Maggie. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you, Coach Mike Locksley. PG County, man. You cannot replicate that. I was saying Caleb Williams, best athlete out of there for a while, right?
Do you count where Iverson and those guys and Vic are from? Newport News. Is that considered a DC?
No.
How far away
That's
is
Virginia.
Yeah, but so all Virginia and DC, it's not that far.
No, that's not the DC area. Kevin Durant's from the DC
Kevin
area.
Durant's.
He's from PG County.
Because if you get Newport News, then you get Vic and Iverson. And
No. That's like the Mid-Atlantic. But if you're talking about
it's
DC,
not like it's not that far away.
DC, Maryland, I know it's Virginia, Del Mar.
Well, you're talking to a guy who counts Penn State as part of Philadelphia proper, and that's 3.5 hours away.
No, that's different. That's Virginia. Meanwhile, someone else who's from Virginia, Hampton, Virginia, to be specific, is Gerard Mayo. And he has just been named the new head coach of the New England Patriots. This is breaking news right now from Adam Schefter. They are reporting that Gerard Mayo is the new head coach for the New England Patriots. He will supplant Bill Belichick.
There you go.
This is not surprising. So
Yeah.
we got some information yesterday about the structure of the contract that Gerard Mayo had signed with the New England Patriots. Apparently, Perloff, there is a loophole where if you go to the NFL and you tell them before the season starts, this is our succession plan, here's who we want to take over for the head coach who's the incumbent, you do not have to satisfy the Rooney Rule. So you can,
I didn't know that.
Yes,
Okay.
I didn't know it either until
Yeah.
I read about it yesterday. So if this language exists, again, before the season starts, if you know, hey, we're going to pass the torch from this guy to this guy, they don't necessarily have to have another contract in place, but it has to be written. This is going to be our next head coach. Now, you don't have to necessarily honor it. You could always break that, and you could, like the Patriots could have had that language in Mayo's contract, which they did, and they still could have broken it and gone on to interview Vrabel and blah, blah. But you have to open up then to multiple minority candidates that you'd have to interview.
Everything now in the Belichick press conference, what Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick said, they kept talking about we plan this. Like I thought it was weird, the we language that Belichick was using. So I think that Belichick is kind of engineered this in a way. Don't you think that makes him a lot of sense?
Listen, I think that Belichick, I don't think he necessarily wanted to leave, though. So I think he maybe wanted Gerard Mayo to take over for him, but maybe not right now.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, listen, the story goes Gerard Mayo retired and got into business, was not really planning to be a coach, but he was someone who Belichick saw something in. This is a guy who came into a team that had established stars and became a captain in his second year with the Patriots. I mean, he has leadership qualities, so Belichick was the one who kind of convinced him to come on the staff.
Yeah, there was. We'll get more into it, but there was that negative story about him, which was out of nowhere because you never heard anything but great things about him until this year. Yeah, I'm a little worried because you have me worried because you keep saying the coaching tree has not worked out for Bill Belichick, and that's where they're going.
Well, I mean, that's just the facts, right? The Belichick assistants have really disappointed by for the most part. Now, granted, maybe that's because we're comparing them to Belichick. Like Bill O'Brien didn't actually have a bad tenure in Houston. They made the playoffs multiple times. It was because of totally extenuating circumstances that he ended up becoming the general manager. That was because the other general manager had a personal issue with his wife, right, that he had to step away. And so, Bill O'Brien kind of got thrown into, all of a sudden now he's drafting players. I mean, giving them contracts. That was not what he was hired to do.
Yeah, I don't know if Bill O'Brien was that successful. I feel like Deshaun Watson got him to the playoffs a couple times.
Yeah, beat my Bills. Okay, so that's the big news is Gerard Mayo is now officially taking over for Bill Belichick. We've got a lot more reaction for you in just moments. Don't move. Maggie and Perloff, CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. 4 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
All right, let's take a look at who's got home field advantage this weekend in our NCAA basketball preview, sponsored by Fairfield by Marriott. Fairfield by Marriott is the official hotel partner of the NCAA. With over 1,000 locations around the country, you'll always have the home field advantage. Visit fairfield.marriott.com to book your stay. All right, Saturday, we got number 3, Kansas, going against number 9, Oklahoma at Allen Fieldhouse, where the Jayhawks are undefeated at 8-0. Tip-off scheduled for 2 p.m. Eastern. Playoff time, which means it's just around the corner where we're going to have to do a cram session on college basketball. I watched my first game the other day, and then I tuned in last night. Speaking, we just had the Maryland coach, Michigan and Maryland. Michigan's awful at basketball now. How on earth did that happen?
Well,
they're
they've had
6
a lot
and 11.
of issues with the head coach. Unfortunately, Juwan Howard's been dealing with some health issues and stuff like that. So
yeah, it is a weird year. And every time Bogusch comes in, another top 5 team has fallen. So college basketball is wild, but you got Kansas and Oklahoma this weekend.
Very good. Major news going on right now in the NFL. The day after the Patriots make it official, they're parting ways with Bill Belichick. They are now tabbing Gerard Mayo to take over. It's Adam Schefter and now others who have the news. So basically before the the press conference was cleaned up on Belichick and Kraft yesterday, sharing all these niceties, the Patriots waste no time in hiring Gerard Mayo. Again, the reason they're able to do this is there's a clause in Mayo's contract that he was going to take the torch from Belichick. It was written in before the season, and that way they don't have to open up the hiring to everyone. Also, Gerard Mayo is a minority candidate, so it already would satisfy the Rooney Rule.
If you're a Patriots fan, you might be asking, what's going to be different about our 4-13? The defense was good and has been good under Mayo, but you're probably going to have Bill O'Brien back as offensive coordinator.
I want to talk about that.
Yeah, but the other thing, too, is you're going to have the number 3 pick. You might get your quarterback. You might not get your quarterback. This is a tough assignment for Gerard Mayo to fill in, not only filling in for a legend, but to be totally bereft of offensive talent.
I wonder how much pressure there's going to be in the building to get a quarterback. Because you're right, you're not picking top 2, you're picking third. Now, that could be great. You could end up with Drake May or Jaden Daniels, or you might end up with the best quarterback of the bunch if Caleb Williams goes number 1 overall, which we expect him to do. I expect him. Is there that much of a dire need, gotta get the quarterback this year? Or do you think Gerard Mayo, who's probably going to get a little time here, I doubt he's going to be a 1 and done or 2 or done coach. He's not going to flame out, I don't think. It might be a long rebuild. Maybe there's a way you can kind of kick the can down the road here with a free agent or with a veteran.
And honestly, if you do get the rookie quarterback, what chance on earth does this rookie quarterback have? Who's he throwing to?
Well, you have draft picks, so you're going to have to restock the cupboard.
Well, that's it. But you're using your top draft pick on a quarterback, and you have a lot of other needs. You're not a young team on defense. It's a tough spot right now. So a rookie quarterback comes in. You'd like to actually maybe have that guy sit for a little bit and learn, but you're going to be thrown right into the fire. Congratulations, Gerard Mayo, and I'm very sorry you're taking this job.
Well, but think about it. You say, if you take a quarterback with pick number 3, you're picking high in every round. So then you're picking 34th in round 2. There's going to be good receivers there, I would imagine.
Yeah, and the Patriots have had an unique ability to miss all the good receivers and take average ones. It's not that easy. But by the way, I agree with what you said. You got to give this guy a 4-year window here, because if you're expecting him to win immediately, not going to happen.
Okay, so there are other huge questions surrounding the New England Patriots that we haven't even scratched the surface of yet. But the big news is Gerard Mayo is taking over for the departing Bill Belichick. So we've got more for you in just moments. Don't move. Maggie and Perloff.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's a violin prodigy. Her full name is Maggie the Stallion. They are Maggie and Perloff on CBS Sports Radio.
Major news a day after the Patriots say goodbye to Bill Belichick. They have tabbed their successor. That didn't take very long. Jerod Mayo, former linebacker, current linebacker coach for the Patriots, is now going to slide over into the top seat for New England. Maggie Gray, Andrew Perloff. Not a shock here, Perloff. Jerod Mayo had been the front runner for quite some time.
Yeah, I mean, he'd been the heir apparent. Obviously, the Patriots defense, as bad as the Patriots have gotten, they're still in quite good, quite consistent. So hiring the defensive coordinator makes sense. I just think there is definitely a lack of excitement here. I think Vrabel, I'm not saying Vrabel's a better coach than Gerard Mayo because we have no idea what Gerard Mayo is, but he's something a little bit different than what happened last year. We've just seen this gradual slide. So if it wasn't for the Patriots' mystique, wouldn't this be a perfect spot to just start over, rip the Band-Aid, get a new GM in and a new coach and a completely new direction? But this feels like a continuation to me, and I don't mean that in a good way.
You know, I'm going to go a step further here. And if it wasn't the Patriots, I think that you would be completely in your right to criticize every single thing that's happened since yesterday. And I guess what I'm talking about is a couple things. Number one, I never think it's a good idea to hire your coach, then hire a general manager. And that's the one thing that's really been kind of missing from the discussion about Belichick leaving is it's not just the head coach that's leaving, but it's also the GM. So unless that person is in the building and you're also just elevating that person and they're on board with Mayo, you do this kind of disjointed thing where either the GM has to inherit a coach or a coach inherits coach inheriting the GM is also kind of odd. I think the better setup is to have the GM in place first, and then the GM is part of the process of hiring the head coach. Isn't that how usually the good teams do it?
I think so. It's funny. I can't even picture them hiring a hot GM from somewhere. They're not going to bring in like Adam Peters, the Niners guy. They're not. Do you think that they're really going to bring in a legitimate GM? I feel like if they're going to hire Mayo, they're going to just keep on going from within on the personnel side as well.
Okay, but Belichick does everything. It's Belichick in the war room.
Wow.
At some point, wouldn't you hear something like, hey, by the way, we are going to elevate, yada, yada, up to be our general manager, and yet you haven't heard boo about that side of things.
But you haven't even heard boo, right? But they haven't had boo about interviewing some hot assistant GM anywhere. It just feels like they're going to continue the Belichick way, which means not bringing in outside ideas. I don't know. You're right. Logically, I don't know who it would be in the building, but I don't think they're going to have any radical change here. And honestly, you're talking about the GM job. How many rosters have less talent than New England right now? Maybe, I think you might say Carolina is one, and even that's arguable.
Cardinals.
I think the Cardinals have more talent than the Patriots.
Why? Because of Kyler?
Well, yes, and I don't know. Maybe because I just saw them beat the Eagles, and they have some young players. I think the Patriots are really bereft, and especially because you don't have a quarterback.
Okay, so if you go on the Patriots website, as we're talking about the front office, so Gerard Mayo gets hired as the head coach. That's the breaking news from just a few minutes ago. But there's not a GM because Bill Belichick was the GM. So if you go to the official Patriots website and you go to the front office, it's Robert Kraft, his son Jonathan Kraft, and Matt Groh, the director of player personnel. And that's the only people on the page.
So make him
I guess, but is that you have an opportunity here, right? Where you're trying to turn the page from Belichick and you want to try to get out of a season and, improve on a season where you just won 4 games. Like, the big thing about Belichick was that he couldn't pick the players and had trouble on that side of the ball, especially on the offensive side. So who's going to pick him now? Matt Groh? I'm assuming this got to be Al Groh's some kind of kin who's been with Belichick for ages, who's probably never made a real decision for the Patriots, unless I mean no disrespect by that, but I mean, let's be honest, this was Bill's show.
Okay, what if you stay within the family and get one of the many, many, many former Patriots executives who's out there and bring him back in? I love Scott Pioli. Bring him back. Bring Dimitroff back.
Okay, but
bring the guy who got fired from the Lions, Bob Quinn, John Robinson. There's a lot of former Patriots people out there.
Yeah, and a lot of them are out there. Why?
Yeah.
Because they failed.
The one who has not is Nick Caserio, who had to actually come out and say, I'm not leaving Houston to go back to New England.
Yeah, listen, Thomas Dimitroff, did he fail? I mean, they got to a Super Bowl. They got to a Super Bowl. But
Pioli had some success in Kansas City, too.
You're right. And they got dealt kind of some really tough situations
100%.
there. But here's the thing. Then you got to open it up, though, to a hiring search, which, again, the front office, you also have to do the Rooney Rule. You've got to make sure you're buttoned up. I mean, that's got to be a more public thing.
Yeah.
And we've seen nothing about that yet. So it's funny because I would usually criticize teams who do this way, hire the coach and then go look for the general manager. I don't love it when teams do that. Another thing that if this weren't the Patriots and all the winning they've done that I would probably criticize would be hiring a Belichick assistant. Cat's out of the bag with the Belichick assistants. Like that hay is out of the barn or whatever the expression is. The Belichick assistants, like if you're a fan of another team and you hire a Belichick assistant, it's like, because the reputation is so bad. I'll think back to our former board app, Stu Kovacs, who's the big Raider fan, and the day they hired Josh McDaniels, it was like a funeral. And he was right.
No, well, Josh McDaniels in particular, people know that's not going to work. Yeah, if you're a Bills fan like you are, I think this is a move that makes you feel okay. Like the Patriots are not going to be back.
I'm just saying,
and that's how I feel anyway. Because Gerard Mayo's 37. Like they better say, hey, you have 5 years to do this. There's non-threatening a franchise as you have right now.
Well, but I'm just saying, like you mentioned the Patriots mystique. If it wasn't for that, we could be critical of all of the things that they are doing right now. And yet, I'm actually not surprised by any of them. I'm not surprised that they, elevated Gerard Mayo. They've been telling you basically without telling you this is what they're going to do. And are they going to regret maybe not hiring Mike Vrabel? I don't know. There's still time,
Yeah.
In a couple years, you never know.
So let's look at another model. Tom Landry, success forever in Dallas. At the very end, it falls apart. What Jerry Jones comes in there and just rips a Band-Aid, fires Landry unceremoniously and brings in Jimmy Johnson, the most different, fresh thing the NFL had seen in years. That's what, I'm sorry, if Robert Kraft wants to win another Super Bowl, he had to do that kind of move. Now, Gerard Mayo, who seems like an outstanding coach, has a terrible team around him. He's set up for failure, Maggie, and it's kind of a bummer. I'm not even going to pay attention to them next preseason. I'm going to say right now, they're a no chance team.
No, they'll pull you in if they draft a quarterback or something. If Jaden Daniels is there, that might be kind of cool.
Oh, now you pulled me right back in.
Now I pulled you right back in.
But that's because Jaden Daniels at LSU was a one-man team. That's what they need. There's no talent on offense, and their defense is getting old.
855-212-4CBS. You're welcome to weigh in. Are the Patriots making a mistake here by simply elevating a Belichick assistant coach in Gerard Mayo? Hung is in Pennsylvania. Good morning, Hung. How you been?
Oh, Happy New Year, Happy New Year. Finally, you taking my call. Thank you.
You got it. You're always welcome, Hung.
Every time it comes to January, we talking about the playoff, the wild card, the number 1 seed, number 5 seed. But this year, I'm sick of you guys talking about a coaching staff. That's getting me on my nerve. Every station, every channel talking about the coaching. Don't get me wrong, I love Belichick.
Hung, listen, we'll bring you in for our next production meeting. But, it's not every day that Bill Belichick and Pete Carroll and Nick Saban all, have their things go on in 24 hours.
And Eberflus.
Yeah, can we talk about the Eagle coming in to Tampa Bay, going to blow them out? The Eagle, I don't understand why they spent only -3 because the Eagles should blow them out easy. This is an easy bet for me. I'm go all in with Eagle all day, unless the overrated Matt Patricia, he's a trash liability, and Daniel is trash. I don't understand why they bring in Matt Patricia. That guy is trash.
Hug, have you been watching the footage of the Eagles practice? Did you see Jalen Hurts throwing a football anywhere at any time? He's got a dislocated right middle finger.
Regular season don't mean nothing. When it comes to playoff, that's for real. It's like Kansas City. When it comes to playoff, they're going to play for real. You know what I'm saying, right?
I hear you. But it's hard.
Hug, thank you for the phone call. Of course, you're always welcome.
It's hard in Philly because unlike other towns, you really need that right middle finger more. If you're going down the link, you never know when a bird needs to come out. Now, Jalen Hurts is not that type of guy, but normally if a fan, that would be a serious injury for a fan. But he's...
I love that. That one middle finger is just not good enough if you're a Philadelphia fan. Left middle finger won't get the job done.
It's funny. We're excited about all these playoff games. There is no excitement about Bucks and Eagles. Baker Mayfield is certainly not throwing passes in practice, and Jalen Hurts is nowhere to be seen. That is shaping up to be an ugly, injury-riddled affair.
I was thinking, what would be the worst, injury for a Bills fan? It's definitely whatever the
right
elbow for getting the Molson XXX up to the mouth.
Oh, I would think of something in the core because you need to sort of bend down and jump to get good elevation above that table you're about to break.
Yeah. Don't forget your flame retardant suit. 855-212-4CBS. All right, coming up, we get all the latest information, coaching and beyond. Jordan Schultz from Bleacher Report joins us next.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. 15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Stream the NFL on Westwood One for free. Sponsored by AutoZone all season long. You can listen to every Westwood One broadcast of the NFL live on the NFL app by asking Alexa to open Westwood One Sports, or on the Odyssey app. Get in the zone. AutoZone. AutoZone's free battery testing and charging is available for free at your local AutoZone. Get in the zone. AutoZone restrictions apply. Maggie, we have not addressed the elephant in the room for, I think, all football fans this weekend.
What's that?
And people out of you can weigh into. How on earth are we getting Peacock? What's going on here? Pete's got it. I had Peacock at one point to get the Baby Boss movie. You already used up your trial. What did you use your trial on?
To get the Dan Patrick Show. To watch you guys.
Great cause. Great cause. I'm going to a friend who actually does not have Peacock. He said he has to sign up for a month of Peacock. I think it's going to be funny. It's like a water cooler moment for all of America is how are we going to see this silly Chiefs-Dolphins game?
Well, it's funny because when we all had to sign up for Amazon to get the Thursdays, it's like, all right, we're doing that for a whole season. This is just for a game. Now, you may have already signed up if you watched the Bills-Chargers game. That was also exclusively on Peacock. I watched it on my phone because I have NFL Plus, and my phone is basically a laptop computer. So I felt fine just watching it on the phone.
Yeah.
Meanwhile.
Yeah, I'm so excited. It's funny, the way they've placed the games are putting a lot of emphasis to this Chiefs-Dolphins game, giving it to Peacock. The Houston-Cleveland game, that is so fascinating. And they're putting that in burying that in the Texans playoff spot, the early game. But to me, that's one of the must-watch games.
You always say you don't want to face a team twice. Like, it's hard to beat a team twice. That Houston-Cleveland game, different, right? Because C.J. Stroud did not play in the last Houston-Cleveland game.
Unfortunately, my friend Case Keenum started that one. Had no chance. Cleveland's defensive line blew the Texans' pretty good offensive line off the ball from the get-go. Yeah, this is so fascinating too because Joe Flacco, you don't know what that dude's going to do. He is gunning like he looks like he's 30 years old and he will throw it to the other team. It's we're going to do our picks later. I think that's a hard game to pick. It's a small spread. It should be a lot of fun. But right now, obviously, this week has been dominated by coaching news, and we've been talking a lot about Bill Belichick. But our upcoming guest is very familiar with another coach who's on the move, and that, of course, is Bleacher Report's Jordan Schultz, good friend of the show, top NFL information guy. Jordan, how you doing?
Good morning. Doing well. Thank you. How are you?
I'm great. So what was your reaction? You're a Seattle Seahawks fan, lifelong, when the Pete Carroll press conference came, and they are moving on from their future Hall of Fame coach.
So I wasn't shocked. I was surprised. I think, there's so many layers to that situation in Seattle with Pete. I think the most important thing to consider is he's 72 years old. He was the oldest coach in the league. And it was pretty clear with his press conference that he wants to keep coaching. One of the things that I also think is really significant to note is that when you're talking about Pete Carroll, he had a tremendous amount of power within that organization, and that complicates things. So you have Jody Allen, who's Pollen's sister. She's running the franchise. You have John Schneider, who's the GM. And when you add all of those elements together, Pete, the shot. It's similar to Bill Belichick in New England, where they're the head coach, but they're also having full autonomy. So I think that complicated things, and I would be really interested to see what Seattle does next because there's the Dan Quinn element. There's definitely going to be interest there. But it's an appetizing job. It's a great football market. It's a great fan base, great stadium, and the roster is pretty good. And I think, again, to reiterate, I think there's a real shot that Pete Carroll would continue coaching.
Yeah, and listen, it's a credit to Pete Carroll that is a more appealing job because there was a long time where the Seattle Seahawks maybe wasn't that appealing of a job. Jordan Schultz is NFL insider for Bleacher Report. Just talking about Pete Carroll and his future, it's funny. We think Belichick's going to have, a few suitors who will be out there, but you're not really hearing much for Pete Carroll. Do you think that he would go coach at another team where he doesn't have the type of power that he earned in Seattle?
That's really the question right now. I don't know the answer to that. I've known Pete not super well, but I've known him for quite some time. And one thing that is completely unique about Pete is his ability to connect with players. Because a lot of coaches can connect with players, but Pete connects with everyone. His energy is unparalleled. And that's why when you talked about his age at 72, I think a lot of people were surprised to learn that he was that old. I would have to believe that he would want to continue coaching even if he didn't have all the power because of his love for it. And, I've asked current players, former players, did Pete ever slow down? And the answer is just definitively no. So I would have to assume that he would want to continue doing it. But similar to Belichick, it has to be the right fit. I think with Pete Carroll, I can't imagine him wanting to go on to a super rebuild. But I would be surprised if he wasn't coaching next year. I really would.
We're talking to Jordan Schultz, Bleacher Report. Jordan, I know you've been working the phones and you've been doing a lot of reporting on who's interviewing where. Who are the hot names? We know obviously that Belichick is out there, Pete Carroll's out there, and maybe Jim Harbaugh is out there. What are teams buzzing, and Mike Vrabel now too? Who are teams really interested in right now?
I think the name that has probably gotten the most juice consistently has been Ben Johnson, who's done a really good job with Jared Goff in Detroit. I think he has 5 requests. The name that I reported yesterday that I think is worth monitoring, even if it's not this year, but going forward, is Brian Johnson in Philly. And I bring that up because I think that there's a misconception with Brian Johnson. The Eagles' offense this year hasn't been as explosive as it was last year. And that's when they had Shane Steichen, who's obviously had a lot of success with the Colts. But a lot of the players that I've talked to offensively really like Brian Johnson. And he's interviewing in Tennessee. He'll be a name to watch for probably in another cycle. But I was surprised to see that there was a lot of pushback from Philly fans. I know they've been frustrated, but I think some of the injuries have played a part. Another name that you mentioned, Jim Harbaugh, he's going to really have his pick of the litter. I mean, you're talking about a guy who is basically, I'm convinced he's going to leave Michigan. It's my understanding that he really wants to get back to the NFL. He was suspended for 6 games this year. There's already just a cadre of violations next year. I'm sure he would be suspended again. There's a good chance of that. I think the Chargers are really going to go all in on Jim Harbaugh. The Raiders are a sleeper team there as well because Mark Davis, it's my understanding, really likes the idea of a big fish hire. But Antonio Pierce has so much juice inside that building, albeit from a Max Crosby, Devontae Adams. I would probably say he's the favorite. But Harbaugh, the reason I say the Chargers too is because, John Spanos, who's their president of football ops, wants to squash this perception that he doesn't want to spend money, especially on a coach, because they haven't really ever done it. I think Jim Harbaugh is the perfect coach for the Chargers, and he can go bring some of his staff, his own GM and Ed Dodds, perhaps from Indianapolis. So I would say Ben Johnson, Harbaugh are probably the two most, but there's a lot of interesting young coaches. And one thing I will say is that, last year, DeMeco Ryans gets hired from San Francisco to Houston. And his success this year has somewhat flipped the narrative that you have to have this young offensive mind. With respect to a Ben Johnson, for example, he's not the only guy. Dan Quinn is another name that has really gotten juice. He has 4 requests. I reported Washington, Carolina, Chargers, Atlanta, I believe. Not Atlanta. It's one more I'm just blanking
Seattle.
on. And I think that was going to say, I think Seattle's going to be the next one. I would imagine today or tomorrow or after the weekend. They got to move quickly on that. But Dan Quinn is another name that's really gotten a lot of juice.
Jordan Schultz is joining us, NFL insider for Bleacher Report. Okay, the latest on Belichick, Jordan, I believe you were reporting that the Commanders were no longer interested. I'm kind of curious if it was Washington that moved away, or maybe Belichick kind of signaled that he would not be interested. What kind of suitors do you expect? We know the Atlanta Falcons, their name's already been out there, but anyone else for Belichick?
I think Carolina's possible. Belichick is the epitome of when he comes in, it's his program, right? I mean, we talked about Vrabel doing that or Carroll, but Belichick has the most power considering his influence on the sport, his 6 Super Bowls. Atlanta, I love the fit in Atlanta. They Arthur Blank at 82 years old, he does not want to rebuild. They have a pretty good roster. I think the biggest question with Belichick is what type of role does he want? Because in my opinion, he is not fit to be both head coach and GM at this stage in his career. I don't think it's best served for him or the franchise. And I think you saw how poorly New England drafted the last few years. Mac Jones didn't work out. So if he comes in and he says, I want to be GM and head coach, that somewhat limits his opportunities. I mentioned Washington not working out or not having interest. It's just not a good fit. There's a new owner there, Josh Harris, who spent over $6 billion. I think they're going to go GM and then head coach last. I don't see that having any fit with Bill Belichick. But Atlanta, Carolina, those make sense. I mean, again, the Chargers are another one perhaps that could work because the owner could, if Bill Belichick said, I want to be GM and head coach, there's vacant spots there. I'm not convinced that Terry Fontenot, the GM in Atlanta, is safe. If Belichick were to say, I want to have full control of Atlanta, he could be in trouble. But to me, the Falcons would be at the top of the list in terms of ready-made to win right now with the right coach. I think it would work.
We're up against a break, so real quick, Jordan, if the Eagles lose on Monday night, is Nick Sirianni gone in Philly?
I knew you were going to ask about Nick. I just knew it, Andrew. I would say if Philly and Dallas flame out in the first round with a disastrous performance, the word I would use would be interesting for Sirianni and McCarthy. That would be the word. I don't know if they're in trouble, but it's something to monitor.
Jordan, thank you so much for doing this. Always appreciate. Oh, quickly, we didn't ask you about Vrabel. Is now that Gerard Mayo, the news today that Gerard Mayo did get that Patriots job, what does that mean for Vrabel?
So I think that's really not a surprise. They've been grooming him the last few years. The expectation was that Mayo would be the guy, that Vrabel could have an opportunity there, and obviously now the question is, does Mike Vrabel still want to coach because he's going to be being paid by Tennessee for a couple of years? I would imagine yes. I have no inclination to believe he doesn't want to coach or be in college for that matter. So the NFL, there's 7 jobs available. He will have a lot of interest. The question with Vrabel really is what type of program he wants to go into. Is he committed to being on a winner now? Does he want to rebuild? But there's 4 or 5 teams that would have interest in Mike Vrabel, and I would imagine he'll interview for at least 2.
I could say right now that you, me, Maggie, and Vrabel are getting cheesesteaks in 3 months if this works out the way I hope it does. I think Vrabel to Philly. Let's go. Get some toughness, blue collar. You know it, Jordan.
You know what, Andrew? If the Eagles win the Super Bowl this year after everything that's transpired, I will buy you a cheesecake. And what's that good? What's that market? Reading Market? Is that what it's
Reading
called?
Terminal Market? Oh, yeah. I took Maggie there. It's great.
And get you a cheesesteak. That'd be my promise.
No. We're going pork sandwich if we go to Reading. I got it all worked out.
Perloff's got a whole order. Don't worry. Jordan, thank you so much. Enjoy Super Wildcard Weekend. Appreciate it.
You too. All right, bye.
And great job with the reporting. Andrew Bogusch is here. Headlines.
Guys, just like that, the Patriots have a head coach again, as you've been hearing, as many expected. Gerard Mayo promoted to replace Bill Belichick. At 37, he becomes the youngest coach in the league. Sean McVay was still that. He was the youngest when he was hired in 2017. 7 years later, he was still the youngest coach in the NFL until Gerard Mayo gets the bump up in New England. As I mentioned last hour, Washington's Kalen DeBoer and Mike Norvell at FSU, the apparent targets at Alabama for Nick Saban's old job. Read into this what you want. DeBoer is not making a scheduled appearance on Seattle radio this morning. The station says the coach and school working on a future, quote, we can all be excited about. Our new best friend, Darko Rajakovic, might need a loan.
It's a complete crap.
The Raptors head coach fined $25,000 for Tuesday night's epic takedown of the officiating in a 1-point loss to the Lakers. Last night, those Lakers lost at home to the Suns, 127-109. Bradley Beal hit 8 threes, scored a season-high 37. Kyrie, a season-high 44, to get the Mavs past the Knicks, 128-124. Luka Doncic did not play because of a sore ankle. The Bucks, a 135-102 rout of the Celtics. It was even worse in Oklahoma City, where the Thunder trounced the Blazers 139-77. Chauncey Billups' team losing by 62, matching the 5th worst defeat in NBA history.
It was almost like a perfect storm, to be honest with you. Nothing really worked for us.
Shea Gilgeous-Alexander led the Thunder with 31 in that one. Guys, back to you.
Andrew Bogusch, thank you so much. Phenomenal job. We turn our attention now to our next guest, and that is the head coach of the Central Michigan football team. It's Jim McElwain, who is also the offensive coordinator for Alabama from 2008 to 2011. We're talking about Nick Saban, who announced his retirement yesterday. Coach McElwain, thanks so much for the time today. How are you?
I appreciate you having me on.
Thank you so much for making the time for us, Coach. We know it's a busy time of year, well, always for college football coaches. But the news came down yesterday that Saban was retiring. What was your first thought?
Wow. I really didn't see it coming. And, we all knew that it was going to happen sometime. But, boy, the way his team played this year, I just, in seeing him really enjoy the process with that football team, I was surprised.
Did you ever see a dip in intensity over the years? Is he more mellow now at 72 than he was, say, 15 years ago?
Well, it's been a while since I've been around him, but, I know this, and the one thing that will stick with me forever is, no matter who it was, no matter, what your role was, he kind of wanted one thing, and that was, work hard and be complete in what you do. And I don't think that ever changed or deviated in anything he ever did.
Coach Jim McElwain won 2 national championships as an offensive coordinator at Alabama. We've been talking about Nick Saban. Of course, he's the head coach now at Central Michigan. Coach, it's interesting because you've got so many people in the Saban coaching tree that you could look at to fill these shoes. But let's say that Alabama decides to go with like an outside hire, if you will. If that coach came to you and said, what should I know about coaching at Alabama? What would you tell him?
Well, that's great. That's a great question. I say this as an assistant. Coach really did a great job of letting the assistants do their job and kind of shield them from, all the outside stuff that goes on. And the one thing I would say is make sure you got trusted people in there. That's something that's really big.
Coach, sorry, can you describe, because you've coached, obviously, you coached at Florida, you've been in some extremely pressurized situations. Can you describe the type of pressure what it's like to coach at Alabama, and if that is a unique kind of pressure to other places in college football?
No, I think, you go into this profession and if you don't enjoy the pressure, you probably ought not do it. It doesn't matter where you're at. But, there was a level of expectation. But, at Alabama, and obviously when I first got there, we were just kind of building, the program to where, it is consistently now. And, those pressures are, not that great because everybody that's in this, everybody that does it, we kind of thrive in that. And, the people in Alabama have an expectation right now. The bar has been set high, but you know what? That's okay. Somebody will go in there and accept it, the challenge, and go get it done.
So we've been debating all week, is Nick Saban the greatest of all time college football coach? I got to tell you, most people in this room and most of our callers think he is. If someone came up to you and said, Coach, he's not the GOAT, he's not the best of all time, what would you say to them?
Say you're crazy. This guy, and I know, obviously, being in that room with him and the success we had, and then, competing against him a couple of years at Florida in the SEC championship, the way he is, every aspect, there's no detail too little. And what he's done to affect young men's lives and coaches and family lives throughout his career is something that, man, it's hard to explain. So for me, there is no better.
Coach Jim McElwain, the head coach for Central Michigan, the Chippewas. He was a former Nick Saban assistant, the offensive coordinator for Bama, 2008, 2011, won 2 national championships at Bama. We're talking about Nick Saban, who announced he was retiring yesterday. Coach, there's an idea that, like, there might not be, some people might be turned off by having to follow in the footsteps of Nick Saban. Do you think that's a legitimate concern for a coaching candidate who might be considered for this job?
I'm sure that probably comes up, and I think that's human nature. Who are you following? What difference can I make? This guy's done it all. I'm sure there's some of that, and yet, I'm sure the people that their administration's talking with, are those that, I have a plan. I can go in and do this. And, I'll say this, there's not many greater places I think out there than the University of Alabama. I mean, the support, the tradition, the history, all of the things that go along with it. I think for whoever gets it, that it's a great opportunity.
Now, Coach, you've also worked with Jim Harbaugh in Michigan. Have you talked to your former coworker since the national title game? I don't know if you're still in touch with him, but I assume he's in a very good mood right now.
Well, it's amazing. I mean, he even got a text back from Coach Saban. I think he's really enjoying this retirement. But Coach Harbaugh, the same way. He's obviously excited, and what a run they've had, and what a great job he's done with that program.
Do you think he's off to the NFL, Coach?
I have no idea. I'm too busy trying to win a game for the Chippewas. So
I understand that, and we appreciate your time so much. I'm just curious, have you heard at all, again, from the NCAA about any of the sign stealing stuff, or not a peep?
I know they've interviewed some people in our organization, and I know they're doing the best job they can to kind of get to the bottom of it. But no, I mean, that one's a beauty, I'll tell you that. I have no idea.
Very interesting. Well, Coach Jim McElwain, we appreciate you joining us. I have some family in Mount Pleasant, Michigan. It is amazing there. I had some family who work for that university, not in the athletic department, but in another educational department. And, Coach, I got to say thank you so much, and you get a beautiful place to live.
Oh, thank you, and it is a great place. And fire up chips.
There you go. Coach Jim McElwain is a head coach of Central Michigan and former Nick Saban assistant, also the head coach of Florida as well. There you go. Get a little flavor.
You are not, I mean, obviously today, no former coach is going to say anything that's not nice about Nick Saban, but you really kind of hear the love for the former boss. And I've seen it before. It's not just a retirement. Every Nick Saban assistant appreciates him.
You want to know what I find interesting about when people talk about Saban and sometimes with other really successful coaches? Do you hear what Coach McElwain said there? Like, it was about process. It was about details, about this. They never say it was about winning at all costs. Like,
ooh, Belichick, they would.
Well, maybe Belichick, but like Saban, I know we always talk about Philadelphia with the process, but Nick Saban was kind of the first person who talked about its process over results and never really talked about winning, just talked about doing it the right way. And look what happened. All this winning happened. Like, we talk about Michael Jordan was just maniacal to win. It didn't matter if it was poker or if it was basketball. I feel like Saban really was more about a good process.
Right, but I get Saban and Urban Meyer confused on this. Wasn't Saban, he's talked about after a title game, he did not celebrate. He went in the back room and called recruits. And that he couldn't enjoy his success at certain points of his career. I have trouble buying that winning isn't everything. I think bottom line, Nick Saban, I think right now we're kind of being fooled by this nice Nick Saban. I think when McElwain was there in 2008, I think winning at all costs was the mantra. I don't think he accepted it.
You think this is all window dressing?
You just look at Nick Saban, and right now it's funny. Him and Bill Belichick are sort of going different paths. Belichick still wants to coach. Saban's retiring. Saban seems like the nice guy. Bill's a little grumpy, but those guys have a lot in common, and I think winning is big, and you know it, Meg.
I know. Can I tell you one of the funny moments that I read about from Alabama over the last 48 hours? I read about this in The Athletic. So when the news came out about Saban retiring, a crowd just sort of organically formed around his statue by the athletic department, right?
Okay.
So, or the stadium. Anyway, so like fans came, they put flowers. They said it kind of resembled a memorial, which is always weird. They say this about athletes and fame and coaches, like they kind of die twice. It's like you retire and then when you actually pass away. But the crowd broke out into song, including renditions of Sweet Home Alabama and Amazing Grace. That was kind of interesting. There were other passionate cries, it said, from fans have their preferences. So one fan in particular stated, I'm excited to see our next head coaches, but I just have one thing to say. Anyone but Dabo. Say it with me. And an anyone but Dabo chant broke out at the Saban statue.
It's so funny. 5 years ago, Dabo, they would have killed to have Dabo as a successor. Now, because the dude won't use the transfer portal, kind of destroyed his own program, and Alabama doesn't want any part of it. Sweet Home Alabama, what a cliche. To sing that. I mean, you have to.
It's a crowd organically forming at a Saban statue. What do you think they were going to sing?
I think Amazing Grace at least makes sense because everyone knows the song.
But Amazing Grace, I thought, is a funeral song. Right?
Yeah, I guess it is. I guess so, but at least you know the words. What you could do, Sweet Caroline. There's not that many songs that everybody can sing together.
I think if you're a lifelong Alabama fan, you definitely know the words to Sweet Home Alabama.
Yeah, that's why they had to sing it because you have to coordinate.
It's the only song they could have
I mean, there's only a handful of songs. If you have a group of people, say we were all going to get together and sing a song, what song do we all know the words to?
There's very Happy Birthday?
Few. Jingle Bells? You're not going to... Yeah.
Is there one? What's the one song everyone knows? I think it's Happy Birthday.
Yeah.
Really wouldn't
But you're not
fit.
going to sing Happy Birthday around a statue.
It's just as ridiculous as singing Amazing Grace. That's totally ridiculous.
It's the somber tone. I mean, the program's not dying, everybody.
Go do something.
Well, the other part, did you see that after Michigan won, Jim Harbaugh was in the locker room and they sang for He's a Jolly Good Fellow?
Oh, that's so weak.
Fits him.
That is old school.
Did the team know the song?
They did. They must have sung it before. Does anyone sing for He's a Jolly Good Fellow anymore?
He's a guy. No.
Oh.
It's like 99 bottles of beer on the wall. That's like old school.
No, it's like a retirement song. Like it's somebody's retirement. You know, if a colleague here at CBS Sports Radio retires. Like
Nobody's
when
breaking
Pete
into...
retires, are we going to break out into For He's a Jolly Good Fellow?
Oh, no, they're not.
In 1985, you might have, but I don't think...
1965.
Yeah, that is not quite... For He's a Jolly Good Fellow is not modernized.
Playing Hit the Road Jack.
Would you just foul out of a basketball
But apparently
game?
you don't want Amazing Grace. That's not...
No, because I'm not dead yet.
We'll sing some kind of nice Billy Joel number.
That's right. Piano Man, that'll be good.
Uptown Girl?
That's a good one. Be one of them.
Pete's going to sashay out of here to Uptown Girl?
Uptown Girl, you've been living in the...
Just
go out in a good mood.
Yeah.
Just don't play anything off his classical albums. That's it.
What about Pete has anything in common with Christy Brinkley?
Not much.
Nothing. Zero.
Assuming you wrote that for her, right? She was in the music video.
Actually, Pete, you might leave a weed and start the fire. It's just like, don't blame me. It wasn't me.
Yeah, because we all know the words to that song.
I walk out the door. It's already
We would all screw up the way. Like, there's no more screwed up lyrics than we didn't start the fire.
How does anyone know the lyrics? You can't do that.
You sing it enough, you can. You could do some of it.
Pete, you could do it.
I could do it, but
Pete, do as much as you can if we didn't start the fire.
not now. I need a little bit of
Okay,
time.
after the break, Pete will sing a cappella, or you can put the music to it.
What a tease.
As much as he can do off the top of his head. You can't look up the lyrics. This has just got to be like as if the organic group that gathered around the Saban statue, say we're gathering around a Billy Joel statue.
Well, I will start now by apologizing to everybody.
Well, you'll get that on the other side. 855-212-4CBS, Maggie and Perloff, CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Maggie and Perloff's NFL picks.
Okay, we'll get to that before Pete sings "We Didn't Start the Fire" off the top of the dome. Can't look at any of the lyrics. Okay, Perloff and I, very, very tight here in our season-long NFL picks. Perloff is currently 500 at 27-27. I have started to close the gap, 26-28. So how we do?
That's
one
one
against
game
the spread,
behind.
one over/under, one player prop. Would you like to start us off, sir?
Okay, can I start with our total here? I'm going over on the Packers and Cowboys. I feel like the Cowboys are going to score 100 points because the Packers defense is not good. The total is set at 50.5. I'm going over 50.5.
Okay, for my over-under, I'm going to go to the Kansas City Chiefs and the Miami Dolphins. Give me the under 42.5. I know this has been a popular pick. Count me in with the crowd. It's going to be -3, maybe -30 with the wind chill. I can't imagine that would lead to a lot of scoring. So 42.5, I'll take the under.
Okay, for my spread here, is this week? I'm just going to do it. I'm picking the Bucs +3 against my Eagles. Am I allowed to do that?
You picked the Cardinals and you took the points against the Eagles?
It was 12 points.
Yep.
This one I'm a little less secure about because Baker Mayfield's hurt and the Bucs look terrible against the Panthers. But I feel like the Eagles have given up. And I feel like they should give up because they stink right now. It's interesting. It's 3 points. Give me 3 points in the Bucs.
Okay. Emotional hedge from Andrew Perloff.
No, I don't want to be accused of that.
Too late. I'm going to, for my against the spread pick, I'm going to take the Cowboys. I'm going to lay the 7. It's the Cowboys at home against this Joe Barry defense of the Green Bay Packers, much maligned. I think the Packers kind of playing with house money here. Maybe they play loose, so that helps. But, the Cowboys just play loose at home. So I'll take the Cowboys and I'll lay the touchdown.
Okay. For my prop, there's a lot that I like this weekend. I did want to do something weather-related, but I need some action on this Browns-Texans game. This is going to be the greatest thing ever. And who does not love the narrative of Mr. Joe Flacco, over 268.5 passing yards? Let's go, playoff Joe. It is time for the Flacco flock to get flapping.
Wow, is he elite? Give me, for my player prop, Isaiah Pacheco, over 64.5 rushing yards. Again, I'm counting on the weather to kind of stifle the passing attack for both teams. So Pacheco, 64.5. There you go. So,
can I have a second prop?
No.
Can I tell you the one?
Sure.
I'm going to get this on the table. This is not my pick, but Josh Allen is definitely having over 8.5 carries against Pittsburgh. But you know what's funny?
18.5 carries.
But I looked at he often does not hit that number. If they're winning and they could just hand the ball off. Anyway, weather is anybody betting, you kind of have to wait in Buffalo. You're an expert on the Buffalo weather. Feels like it could change at the last minute.
Yeah, they're expecting maybe 50-mile-an-hour wind gusts. Okay, fade down the music. It is time. We decided that when that time comes far in the future, when Pete Bellotti decides to retire, much like Nick Saban, we will have to sing him out of the building. He will sing himself out of the building.
Play us out.
And he would, the song he would choose is Billy Joel's We Didn't Start the Fire, the song that nobody sings because nobody knows the words. Here's Pete. We didn't start the fire.
I'm going to try it. No instrumental because they'll throw me off. All right. Harry Truman, Doris Day, Red China, Johnny Ray, South Pacific, Joe DiMaggio, Joe McCarthy, Richard Nixon, Studebaker, Television, North Korea, South Korea, Marilyn Monroe, Rosenberg, H-Bomb, Sugar Ray, Pamuja, Randall, The King and I, and The Catcher in the Rye, Eisenhower vaccine, England's got a new queen, Marciano, Liberace, Satay, and the Goodbye. I don't know the rest.
We didn't start the fire.
It was always burning, the world turning. We didn't start the fire.
Oh, there's the bad time music. It's time to go now.
Bravo! What a way to end the show. You nailed the dismount there, Pete.
Thank you very much.
Thank you to Carlos Ortiz. Thank you to Pete Bellotti in the pipes. Thank you to Andrew Bogusch. Thank you to Andrew Kaplan. Thank you to Jim McElwain, to Jordan Schultz, to Mike Locksley, to Ian O'Connor.
I don't know if that was pipes, by the way. It was more mumble.
See you Monday.